Part 54. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 543. The man who killed Wilson with a pen did not lie. He was Tristan Jason, the captain of the Mad Dog Squad, who was called a hero. He returned to the lighthouse alive. Although he was seriously injured when he was rescued by Claire in Pannenstein, the virus in his body still played a role and tried his best to save his life. Later, when he was treated by BSAA, the doctor found that Jason was lacking nutrition, so he also gave him a lot of glucose solution to make him recover faster. Jason, who had been in a coma, had actually woken up a long time ago, but he was just weak and chose to pretend to sleep before he could move. So he knew that his blood was taken for testing, and the virus in his body could not be hidden from the BSAA people. Although the BSAA organization has a good reputation, Jason is still worried that he will be caught for research, and he is also worried that his affairs will implicate the other party, so after resuming action, he escaped from the BSAA camp in the dark night. Because words are not enough, Jason could not provide any evidence, so they could not help. The first team that attacked the knee took this opportunity to distance themselves and change bullets. However, what Shen Mei did not know was that Jason was very unstable because he had stopped taking inhibitors, and he would get hot-headed and lose his mind from time to time. As a result, President Seymour did not investigate based on Jason's name or what he said, but directly asked people to transfer him to a more strict prison. Shen Mei also agreed to this. Then continuous gunshots rang out, and bullets hit his legs like a rainstorm. Jason did have those virus inhibitors in his hand, but he could not prove that these things were taken from the military camp storage room. The charred bodies of the Mad Dog Squad were still stored in the morgue. Jason saw the familiar names on the body bags and couldn't help crying. The people of the Far East branch of BSAA also knew what Jason said, but they did not want to get involved in the political incident, even if it involved biochemical viruses. This test team was exactly the team that Shen Mei's brother was in, and all the team members had mutated into zombies because of the failure of the test. Jason, who had turned into a monster, protected his vital parts with his arms and rushed towards the agents. As long as he got close, the agents' guns would naturally be useless. Shen Mei, who had secretly assisted Jason before, felt bad. She didn't want Jason to kill people, but she couldn't contact him at all now as she temporarily joined the security team. He wanted to crush the bastard's head in front of him. This was not the end. Yes, the man immediately gave an order on the intercom, and soon the surrounding agents came over and asked the reporters to leave. As a result, she saw a fire in the storage room from a distance before she could take action. The reason for choosing the cleaner of the White House instead of the cleaner of the Pentagon was not only to make it easier for Shen Mei to cover him, but also to try to ask the president for help when Wilson's way was blocked. Jason thought that the president and Wilson were in cahoots and were not trustworthy. Another thing is that his appearance has not changed, but his body has actually mutated. So they deliberately told Jason what the president said at the press conference in a whisper, and laughed at his naivete. The woman's name is Shen Mei, and she has a younger brother who died in Pannenstein. 2 loud shots rang out, and the sniper above the White House finally found the attack angle and used the Barrett sniper rifle in his hand to attack. The bullets of all 4 guns were fired at the knee of one of Jason's legs. The people who just passed by were not patrols, but Wilson's men. They directly created a big fire in the storage room according to instructions. Jason may mutate into a monster at any time after using the light inhibitor. How long he can delay depends on his willpower and God's will. Jason, who was beaten, suddenly had an IQ online and remembered Shen Mei's plan. At Shen Mei's suggestion, Jason lay in his brother's body bag and was transported on the plane back to China. After leaving the soundproof press conference room from the back door, the sound of gunfire was heard, and it was not far away. He did not leave without saying goodbye, but left a note on the bed before leaving. When he saw Wilson, The first thing that came to his mind was not to kidnap Wilson as planned and then reveal the truth, but to recall his brothers who died in vain. He was instantly overwhelmed by anger and could not control himself, and killed Wilson directly. Jason, who left the BSAA camp, found a place to hide, changed into dirty clothes, and snatched a few naan bread to eat, and then ran to the lighthouse camp. On the contrary, he felt that even if Jason was alive, he would only become a zombie without the inhibitor, and he would never be able to speak to testify against himself. But before Shen-Mei could think of a way, she was temporarily transferred to the White House to increase security forces because President Seymour was afraid of death. The two often contacted each other in the future to discuss how to dig out Wilson's black material. As a result, Wilson happened to return to the lighthouse to prepare for his appointment, so Jason was empty-handed. "Mr. President. What happened? We haven't asked any questions yet." A reporter, relying on the size of his media company, held up a recorder and was about to catch up and ask. On the other hand, Shen-Mei was arranged by Wilson to join the White House Secret Service security organization because of her beauty and communication hacking ability to serve him. The reason is not complicated. Wilson will definitely not return to Palestine after taking office as Minister of Defense. The 8 agents who were delaying the time had 4 MP7 submachine guns and 4 M401 assault rifles in their hands. During this period, in order to hide himself, Jason also had plastic surgery to look like a cleaner in the White House, and then stayed in the house rented by Shen-Mei waiting for an opportunity. But time was tight, so he quickly calmed down and had an in-depth exchange with Shen-Mei. After the Far East branch learned that Jason had left a note, they did not make it public or tell Claire, and really treated this person as if he had never been there. He was beaten to his knees and saw Shen-Mei pulling up the president and moving away from him, and he couldn't help but wonder in his heart, why did she save that sinner? President Seymour didn't care about his image this time, but still gave the other party an order, and said anxiously, "Arrange for the reporter to leave." But these agents have all undergone anti-biochemical training from Leon, and they are not obsessed with attacking the weaknesses of biochemical monsters. But Wilson is cautious, and naturally did not keep the evidence of his previous bad deeds, which led to Jason and the others having to lurk and wait for the opportunity. Another shot rang out, hitting Jason's outstretched arm, stopping his movement. In short, Jason and Shen-Mei had no choice but to find another way after knowing that the storage room was burned down. Wilson, who was caught by President Seymour, would not just surrender. As long as he could find the president's handle in turn, he would not be afraid of President Seymour's threats. President Seymour and Wilson are indeed birds of a feather. After Jason was taken away for interrogation, he told his identity and Wilson's affairs, and begged the agents to tell the president about it. The agent said directly in the president's ear. The agent in charge of guarding reported that the attacker turned into a monster and was coming here. "We have to leave quickly." The White House agents were furious tonight. Although they still recorded and submitted Jason's affairs, after the questioning, the agents rushed up and punched and kicked Jason. So he had to catch the president or his wife and children before he entered the underground safe house, and force the president to tell the reporters about the bad things Wilson had done, and then kill the president. President Samuel quickly moved towards the presidential office under the cover of the agent, but because the monster blocked the way before, he had to take a long detour. But it was not so easy to hit Jason while running. One shot missed, and the other grazed his arm, but the damage was quickly recovered. At Jason's suggestion, Shen-Mei prepared to go to the storage room and take pictures of the virus suppressant. Jason was now an illegal immigrant and could only find a way to smuggle back to the lighthouse country. So after Shen-Mei and the others knew about the press conference, they immediately started the plan and let Jason, who had undergone plastic surgery to look like a cleaner, sneak into the White House that day, and attack the unlucky reporter in the bathroom and change into the reporter's clothes. President Samuel didn't even look back. He felt that he had done his best to arrange for the reporter to leave quickly. He stood up with his hands supporting his body, but relaxed the protection of his vital parts. Another team of agents immediately opened fire and concentrated their firepower on Jason's exposed second heart. Because the mission was time-sensitive, these people naturally did not count the number, so Wilson did not know about the theft. Jason is not weak now, but without the blessing of the 3 Defense Military Code, he is still not enough to face 8 guns, not to mention that he is facing elite agents who have undergone antibiochemical training. Both sides did not act rashly for a while, because the people who discovered Jason also sneaked in. A beautiful figure appeared in Jason's eyes. They were divided into 2 groups with 2 submachine guns and 2 assault rifles as a group, and took turns shooting. Then he did not leave the barracks, but sneaked into the storage room of the barracks and stole the virus suppressant that had not been destroyed there. The president wanted to transfer the murderer to a more strictly guarded place while the reporters were being dragged by him, so when he was giving a speech, Jason was escorted away by the agents. Those White House agents deliberately provoked Jason. They wanted to make him resist and escape, and then directly shoot him. Jason did not expect this, and fell forward. In this way, the 2 sides had a common goal and successfully reached a cooperation agreement. Shenmei did not believe it at first, but recalled that her brother's death was consistent with the other party's words, and she found that Wilson was indeed problematic after her investigation, so she finally believed Jason. He had worked as an agent in the White House and knew it well. In addition, the president's orders came from the headphones he was wearing, so he knew where to find the president. So she quickly regained her composure after recognizing Jason. When she heard the movement, she asked him to go to the morgue with her to avoid the patrol soldiers. The agent who was responsible for delaying time before also caught up, forming a pincer attack. Shenmei and Jason were on the same flight, and they were people Wilson valued, so they could naturally help Jason leave the body bag and send him out of the barracks. Jason agreed to try to believe the president once, but if he failed, he would do it according to his own ideas. After learning about Shenmei's identity and questions, Jason told Shenmei about the biochemical virus enhancement drug and mentioned that there was a test team before the Mad Dog team. But Jason did not surrender. He rushed into the room next to him, dodged the attacks of the 2 teams, and continued to break through the wall, killing the 2 agents who were frightened behind the wall. The large number of reporters attending the press conference gave Jason the opportunity to fish in troubled waters. "Why do you want to hide the truth?" Jason's head got hot again when he saw his enemy, and he roared and rushed towards Seymour. Thinking of this, Jason fell into darkness, accepted the virus and quickly mutated into a monster. All the shackles on his body were broken free by brute force. He was angry and killed all the agents around him. He messed up the initial plan, so he could only activate President Seymour's backup plan. Jason recognized the other party first, hoping that the other party would not make it public. He didn't want to kill his brother in the army. Jason took a shortcut by hitting the wall directly, and his speed was naturally faster than Seymour, and he blocked him again. Jason, who had avenged his great revenge, finally remembered the original plan. He struggled to prevent the agent from gag him, and shouted out the bad things Wilson had done. When Shenmei knew what Jason did at the press conference, it was too late, and she could only bite the bullet and think of a way. President Seymour couldn't help but speed up, and at the same time asked the agent to take his family into the underground safe house immediately. Time passed gradually. What the 2 did not expect was that the opportunity did not appear until Jason had used up all the virus suppressants. Wilson was going to hold a press conference at the White House. Both sides insisted on their own opinions, and finally took a step back. However, Jason did not want to pay attention at all. He rushed over with his arms protecting his vital parts. He was full of anger and just wanted to kill President Seymour. The White House agent did not dare to let the other party catch up. He immediately stopped the other party and said, "Please do not stay here, follow our staff to leave." The agents around the president immediately divided the work. 2 of them took the president away, and the other 8 agents were tasked to buy time for the president. This was originally a normal thing, but an accident made her realize that her brother's death might not be an accident, and the clue was in the Mad Dog Squad. The teammates of the Mad Dog Squad told him that the diary of the former Tri-Union Company researcher had been found by Leon, but the president did not know about this and believed Wilson's words. But just as Jason left the storage room, he was hit by someone passing by. However, the sound of gunfire and fighting was getting closer and closer, and a huge figure broke through the wall and blocked President Seymour. "Why?" Jason roared out his anger, but was covered by the louder gunfire. But he did not lose his intelligence. He took the walkie-talkie from the agent's body and put it in his ear. President Seymour frowned. Although he was dissatisfied with the other party's behavior, he knew the severity of the matter. He did not scold the other party and ask directly, "What's the matter?" She was different from Jason. Although she hated Wilson for killing her brother, she was kind-hearted and wanted to punish her enemies with the law. "For your own good, just pretend I have never been here." President Seymour rolled and crawled away from the monster in front of him, leaving a smelly watermark on the ground. However, just as they adjusted the angle and spread to the left and right sides, Jason had killed the agent blocking the president and stretched his arm towards President Seymour. But they couldn't shoot immediately because it was too easy to accidentally hurt the people on the opposite side. Jason is now 2.5 meters tall, his skin has turned dark gray, his muscles have expanded and are as hard as steel, and he looks almost the same as most tyrants. Shen Mei analyzed a lot based on this, and believed that only physical evidence was not enough, and the identity of the former Sanlian Company researcher was not trustworthy, so the president did not accept this physical evidence. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 544. Shen Mei looked at Jason, who was constantly shot but still standing, with sadness in her eyes. She could understand Jason's hatred, but she could not accept Jason's behavior. Shen Mei wanted to avenge her brother and did not want anyone else to suffer the same fate as her brother. Now that Wilson was dead, killing the president would not help reveal the truth. And when she came over, she saw those dead agents, who did not have to die. That's why Shen Mei, who did not want more sacrifices tonight, saved President Seymour. Next, she would use her own method to make the truth public. This is betrayal, and Shen Mei did not deny it. Jason on the other side was attacked by dozens of guns and could not launch an effective attack. At this time, his body and mind were already riddled with holes, and he lost his heartbeat while standing. The storm tonight finally began to subside. President Seymour survived, but there were many things to do next. There were not many agents escorting the reporters away at that time, and since Monster Jason went to the press room to cause trouble for Seymour from the beginning, many reporters took photos of the scene. President Seymour naturally thought of this and immediately sent people to contact major domestic media, asking them to report the follow-up events tonight only after the Z government's review. As for foreign media, Seymour was not so polite and asked all these reporters to sign an agreement. This agreement does not seem to be a gag order, but only requires them to report the news based on the facts announced by the official authorities. In fact, it is also a disguised restriction on the content reported by these foreign media. But this is only a stopgap measure. These foreign media are not all the younger brothers of the lighthouse country. There are also several media from big countries that are not to be dealt with. So his purpose of doing this is more to delay time and let the media forces on his side seize the high ground of public opinion. At that time, even if the enemy announces the truth, it will not cause much trouble. This incident will be the biggest challenge since he became president. President Seymour lay on the sofa in his office and exhaled. He has been very busy these days. He spends most of the day in the office dealing with various things. When he gets home, he usually falls asleep late at night. As he expected, some foreign media did report the words shouted by the assassin, but they had no evidence, so under the media power of the lighthouse country, not many people believed it. As for the attack on the White House, it was once again blamed on the Pannenstein resistance. In short, although it has caused a certain blow to the face of the lighthouse country, the most critical thing has not been exposed, which is acceptable to President Seymour. In addition, the investigation of the White House security issue has also come to an end. The conclusion is that there is no insider. They found the real cleaner in the home of the cleaner Jason pretended to be. From the other party, he learned that he was kidnapped on the day of the incident, so Jason did not need to lurk in the White House, and naturally the assistance of internal personnel was not a necessary condition. However, someone must be responsible for such a big thing, so the security director on that day was directly dismissed. The situation looks good, but Seymour is still uneasy. Because when the body of the monster Jason was transported to the former Anti-Umbrella Research Institute, now the DSO Research Institute, the transport team was attacked and the body was stolen. After that, the agents went to investigate but there was no result. President Seymour, who was exhausted physically and mentally, finished processing the last document and thought that he could finally go home to have a good rest and communicate and play with his wife and children. Just as he was about to get up, the secretary knocked on the door and came in with a bad look. President Seymour took the initiative to ask, "What happened?" Even if such a big thing happened before, his secretary did not show such a look. Secretary Safran handed the pad in his hand to the president and replied, "This is the video that just appeared on the internet. Several TV stations have been hacked and are all playing this video. The TV station is okay, but the video on the internet cannot be cleared, and it has paralyzed our network department." President Seymour showed a little uneasiness on his face and clicked on the video. "Is this Wilson?" "Yes, judging from the background, it was taken in the office of the Minister of Defense." The secretary had investigated everything and answered the question immediately. President Seymour continued to watch the video, his face getting darker and darker. The only thing about him in the video was that he was protecting Wilson. All the other content was the bad things Wilson had done. President Seymour put down the pad and said, "This is fake. Who did this?" He didn't believe Wilson would tell these things. "Isn't this digging a hole for himself and leaving a handle?" The secretary knew that the technical department had confirmed that the video had no traces of editing, but he didn't say it. If the president said it was fake, then it was fake. He replied, "The internet department can't trace it now. The public opinion department said that this public relations will be difficult." After the secretary learned about this, he contacted various departments directly and summarized the situation to President Seymour as soon as possible. Damn it! President Seymour didn't think of any solution at this time, but he still made a decision and said, "The most important thing now is to stabilize the guys in Congress. As long as the impeachment procedure is not initiated, everything will be fine. Do you need to contact the congressman you know?" "I'll do it. Tell Leon to investigate the robbery of Jason's body." President Seymour asked him to leave Washington temporarily, not to protect Leon, but to prevent Leon, an insider, from getting involved in the matter to avoid letting the secret slip. Once Wilson's pre-recorded video comes out, even if he is not impeached, he will definitely be investigated. Got it? The secretary took the order and left the office, so that the president could have a good talk with those congressmen. Luo Guang was still a little disappointed that President Seymour survived Jason's hands, because the other party was the biggest obstacle to revealing the truth about Pannenstein. However, he chose to let Wilson hold a press conference in the White House at the beginning not to target President Seymour. First, the special significance of this place. Words spoken in the White House press conference room are like the Emperor's golden words, which cannot be overturned casually. It will be more troublesome for President Seymour to deal with this matter at that time. Second, because the presidential secretary in the White House is a member of the X organization. The intelligence of the X organization was gathered very quickly this time. Luo Guang did not expose himself, and the people who controlled the Donald family checked the organization's intelligence for him. He used this to confirm that this was just an accident, and it was his plan that happened to give Jason the opportunity to take action. In this case, Luo Guang started the backup plan, which was what he promised to do. He had nothing to do with this incident anyway, so he directly asked Hong Huang to hack the TV station, thinking of resolving this incident as soon as possible to avoid any accidents later. Although the Lighthouse country and Panistan country are now at war, this kind of war between a big country and a small country will not become a talisman for the re-election of the president of the Lighthouse country. So he wanted to take advantage of the time when the Lighthouse country put the blame for the assassination on Panistan country, and threw out the video recorded by Wilson in advance to reverse it and deal a blow to President Seymour's prestige. Leon knew Luo Guang's backup plan. Although he was grateful to President Seymour for promoting him, the two sides were destined to be different people, so after receiving the president's order, he immediately left Washington to investigate the robbery of Jason's body. Luo Guang was paying close attention to the public opinion and the reaction of the X organization, when he suddenly received a call from Simmons. "Boss, is there a mission?" he asked directly, looking like he was ready to serve the organization at any time. Simmons was not polite either, and said casually, "Kara has something for you to solve. Let me tell you first, you must fully cooperate with her, and her words represent my words." He and Kara are now in the honeymoon period, so he called to support Kara and let his confidants go all out. Received Luo Guang paused, then said, "By the way, boss. Regarding the Apocalypse organization, my informant recently has new information." Simmons' eyes changed, sat up straight, and asked seriously, "What information?" The Apocalypse organization is also one of the reasons why Simmons works overtime at home. In addition, the Apocalypse organization poses a considerable threat to the family organization, so he naturally attaches great importance to it. As for questions such as who Luo Guang's people are and how credible they are, he did not ask. Luo Guang said, "The Apocalypse organization is very similar to our organization. In order to raise funds, they have opened many companies and factories to make money to maintain the operation of the organization." Luo Guang was not familiar with economic matters, so he did not express his own ideas. Simmons asked, "Have your informants confirmed which companies and factories are the enemies?" When he said this, he was also thinking about how to use the strong economic strength of his organization to crush the other party's source of funds after confirming that those companies and factories have problems. Luo Guang said, "I don't know, but there is a clue." Simmons did not respond. He did not think that the other party was making fun of him. According to my informant's investigation, those members who make money for the Apocalypse organization don't know that they are members of the Apocalypse organization. Although Luo Guang's words were a bit difficult to understand, Simmons still understood. "Go on." In order to make these members feel a sense of belonging, the people above the Apocalypse organization lied to them that their organization is called Organization X. Hearing this, Simmons roughly understood what the other party wanted to express, and confirmed, "Do you think there are people from the Apocalypse organization in our organization? I'm just worried about confusion. Because those employees don't know the real names of our organization and the other organization." Luo Guang naturally knew that their organization had its own membership list and had a unique way of identifying each other. But he was still worried about this problem, and persuaded, according to the intelligence, the history of the enemy organization is not shorter than ours, and it is very likely that they were mixed into our organization in the early stages of its development. Not only that, there is another reason. Simmons did not quite agree with this statement, but still listened to Luo Guang patiently. "Speak." "The Apocalypse organization has always been hiding under the nose of our organization. I don't believe that with the strength of our organization, we will not discover the existence of such an organization. So you think the surface identities of the members of the enemy organization overlap with the members of our organization? It's dark under the lamp that you can't find it? That's right. Simmons touched his chin and felt that Luo Guang's thinking jumped a little too much. But he really couldn't explain why his organization was so powerful, but he had never discovered the existence of the Apocalypse organization. Unless the other party's organization is just a small one, the ants on the ground will naturally be ignored by the elephants. Luo Guang had naturally considered this, so after hearing Simmons's hypothesis, he said, "The people on the list I provided before are either rich or noble, and their combat power is extraordinary. But this is just the tip of the iceberg leaked by one of the members." What he meant was that the organization that controls these people could not be an unknown small organization. Simmons fell silent. This was indeed a problem. Okay. I will organize a statistical action for personnel and finance to confirm the current development of our X organization. Simmons did not completely deny Luo Guang's hypothesis and put forward his own compromise plan. Each family is not short of money. They just look at the financial statements every year and don't have a deep understanding. Naturally, no one knows how big the current X organization is. Thank you for your trust, Boss. Luo Guang complimented. Simmons also told Kara about Kara's affairs and hung up the phone. Almost the next second, Kara called. "Not just you, we also found traces of the Apocalypse organization." Kara seemed to have a competitive mentality, and she started to express their achievements during this period. "Oh, so amazing," Luo Guang praised expressionlessly. "He did it on purpose." Now that Kara has become Ada, he naturally has to keep a distance to avoid Simmons' misunderstanding. Kara squeezed the phone hard, and the other party's tone of answer was so annoying. In order to maintain her current demeanor, she quickly got down to business. "The thing that turned me into what I am now is a new virus, temporarily named C virus by me. The goal this time is to collect this virus." Luo Guang thought that Kara and Simmons were in a honeymoon period, and the plot of Resident Evil 6 should not happen yet. It's a pity that Simmons didn't meet him before, otherwise he would definitely let Simmons satisfy Kara's desires every day, so that the bad things behind would not happen. As for infecting and controlling Kara, Luo Guang planned to fuse the C virus later. Because when the other party was kidnapped, the C virus on her body was a customized defective product, and it was also mixed with Ada's DNA, so he couldn't use it at all. After all, Kara is a genius researcher, he always has to be on guard and can't overtrust his ability to conceal the Shinra virus. Kara didn't want to talk about it, so he said directly, "Just listen to me. We found clues from the kidnappers and discovered a secret research base suspected of the virus. It is located in an aristocratic school in Southeast Asia, named MaleProtagonist Academy. Meow. Thank you for subscribing and voting me out. This academy seems to come from a university, but I don't know why it is translated as academy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 545. The suspected secret research institute in MaleProtagonist College is still Kara's play of crying thief. She wants to prove that the kidnappers are members of the Apocalypse organization and that the C virus was also developed by them. The reason why Luo Guang was designated to carry out the task is because he is a trusted subordinate of Simmons, and the results of his investigation will naturally be trusted by Simmons. Kara's actions are not superfluous or unnecessary. Because Simmons has been sending people to track down the kidnappers after the kidnapping incident needs to be completed from beginning to end, so that Simmons will stop investigating the incident. Only when this matter is concluded, the self-directed and self-acted things will not be discovered. When Luo Guang heard the name of the school, he thought of something. Kara continued, The location of the school is surrounded by mountains and forests, there is no communication signal coverage, and it is about 3 hours drive from the city. Even if a biochemical crisis occurs in an isolated school, no one will know. This is indeed a suitable place to build a secret research institute. Luo Guang has some impression of Malhai College, which seems to have appeared in the comics of Resident Evil. But he was not very interested in comics, and only had a general idea of the story that happened in this school. If the plot did not change, it should be a trick by Kara. That's right, so we want you to infiltrate and investigate the situation. I have prepared the relevant identity for you. Kara prepared not only the identity, but also the stage, so that the other party could write a conclusion report with the words confirmed that the Apocalypse Organization Research Institute exists. Luo Guang said, a little puzzled, what identity? Many students in that school are either rich or noble, so I need you to pretend to be a transfer student to enter the school to study, and report to the organization after investigating the location of the secret research institute. The organization will solve the problem next. So my task is just preliminary reconnaissance. Luo Guang still looks young now, so he didn't ask questions in this regard. The people in the organization will also be commanded by you in the future, so don't think about being lazy. Kara also knew that Luo Guang often left his BSAA work to play. Well, if you want to investigate, it would be better to be a teacher, right? You have more time. Luo Guang has Red Emperor to help him solve the school surveillance problem, and he can sneak in by just changing his face. Kara immediately refused. No, the school teachers are all well-known teachers, you can't disguise. And compared to students, teachers are more likely to attract attention, which can easily alert the enemy. The other party seemed to despise his knowledge level in the words just now, but Luo Guang didn't complain and replied, okay, listen to you. With his current ability, this small task can be completed in about a day, just to see if Kara has prepared a complete original sample of the C virus for him. Luo Guang flew to Singapore and went to the local X organization base first. He directly declined the help of the cross-dresser who was proficient in the 4 major evil arts, took the student ID card and related supplies prepared by Kara and left the base. In a place without surveillance, Luo Guang controlled his facial muscles and turned into the person in the student ID photo. After doing this step, he put the things on the car prepared by the X organization according to his request, and drove to Malhai College after checking the car. Luo Guang thought that the registration date was tomorrow, so he didn't drive anxiously. Suddenly, a military-priced Hummer quickly appeared in the rear-view mirror. He glanced and saw a familiar person, Chris Redfield. Chris was sitting in the co-pilot seat, and the driver was a young man he didn't know, and there was a person he knew, Mala Bridget, in the back seat. The 3 of them were wearing tactical vests, and they didn't look like they were on a picnic. Luo Guang stepped on the accelerator to speed up, not letting Chris's car overtake him, and thought quickly in his mind. He could continue to pretend to be a transfer student to Malhai College, but this road could only reach Malhai College. Since Chris and his friends appeared here and were fully armed, it meant that Malhai College was likely to have a biohazard. And a transfer student had no chance and should not participate in a biohazard, and would be ordered by Chris to drive back. When he went back to Malhai College, he would have to deal with Chris again, and it would be easy for Chris to misunderstand that he was related to the biohazard. In this case, he might as well participate in this incident openly. Anyway, the mission he got from Kara was also to target the Apocalypse Organization, so it would be the same to let the BSAA and the Apocalypse Organization fight. Luo Guang had confirmed before that the car was not equipped with monitoring equipment, so he changed his appearance back to his own, opened the window, stretched out his hand and waved. The young man in charge of driving saw the car in front suddenly flashed double lights, waved again, and asked Chris beside him, "Captain, is the car in front signaling us?" After a pause, he said his thoughts, "I heard that there are many rich people in Malhai College, and the other party's car is not cheap. In addition, the sudden acceleration before, could it be a provocation to us, wanting to race? Chris was about to answer, but suddenly saw the other party making a gathering gesture of the Lighthouse Country military, so he said, "Signal and stop, see how the other party reacts." He had served in the Lighthouse Country military. Could it be that the other party knew him? Mayra, who was sitting in the back seat, said, "Professor Dag has been out of contact for so many days. I am worried about his safety. Let's not waste time here." The young man felt that the other party's words made sense, but he still preferred his captain. "Mayra, what you said also makes sense, but the other party can't ask us to stop for no reason, right? Listen to me, stop the car." Chris made a decision, and then turned to Mayra behind him and said, "The professor has been out of contact for so many days, so it doesn't matter if there is a little time." "Okay, you are the boss, you have the final say." Mayra had to agree. Luo Guang saw the other party turn on the lights to slow down, so he also stopped the car quickly, and opened the door after confirming that there was no car coming. Luo Guang, Chris recognized the other party at a glance, and was surprised that the other party was here. Why is he here? Did the professor ask him to come? Mayra and Professor Dag had worked with Luo Guang before, so they naturally knew each other, and said puzzledly, "Why is he wearing the school uniform of Malharvey College?" The only young driver who had never seen Luo Guang was named Pierce Nevins. He had just become an adult and was already an outstanding graduate of an elite military academy. Unlike the Resident Evil game, he joined BSAA much earlier. At first, after graduating from the military academy, Pierce did not actually plan to join the BSAA organization, but wanted to follow in his father's footsteps, join the Lighthouse Army, and become an outstanding soldier. However, his father died in the company turmoil to save civilians. This incident changed his mind a lot. In order to prevent more children from losing their fathers like himself, he turned around and joined the BSAA organization after graduation. Although Pierce had never met Luo Guang, he had heard of his name and knew that he was a great hero who solved the company turmoil. In addition, it was rumored in the North American branch that Captain Chris was always exercising his muscles because of his encouragement. Pierce looked at Luo Guang, who was walking over, and suddenly felt like he had seen an idol, and quickly rolled down the car window. Luo Guang glanced inside the car and asked, "Chris, has a biohazard incident occurred at Malharvey College?" Chris explained the situation briefly and did not intend to hide it. "There is no biohazard in North America. I happened to hear that a biohazard incident occurred in Southeast Asia, so I brought Pierce here to study." "Hello, I'm Pierce Nevins, just call me Pierce." Luo Guang shook hands with the other party and nodded. Mayra took over and said, "After the biohazard was resolved, I received news that Professor Dag, who had taken leave, had been missing for many days. Because the time of missing contact was far longer than the number of days he had taken leave, and there was no definite situation, the branch asked me to investigate at Bennett University where Professor Dag teaches. Chris and others came to help me." The clues finally pointed to Malharvey College. Students at the university said that the professor took his nephew there to earn credits. Under normal circumstances, even if Chris was the director of the branch, Mayla should be the captain in command. But the problem is that she is not good at commanding operations, so in the end, Chris was made the captain. Luo Guang said, "Does Professor Dager have a conflict with the school? I remember he lost contact at the school before." Mara didn't expect Luo Guang's focus to be so strange, and she didn't react for a while. Chris spent a lot of time with Luo Guang, and knew that he was just complaining and didn't have to answer him, so he asked directly, "Then what are you doing here, Luo Guang?" Going to school. Luo Guang knew that the other party was anxious, so he didn't keep him in suspense and said, "My informant told me that there is a research institute for developing new viruses hidden in this aristocratic school. There are many rich and powerful people in it, so I plan to sneak in as a transfer student to investigate. He also added, originally, I was wearing makeup, otherwise you would definitely not recognize me. Mara was anxious when she heard Luo Guang say that there was a virus research institute in this school, and said, let's set off immediately without further ado. Okay, Luo Guang was about to turn around and go back to his car. Hey, spare communicator. Chris threw a portable headset to Luo Guang. After returning to the car, Luo Guang stepped on the accelerator and drove very fast. He originally thought that the story of Malhai College had just begun, but now that he saw Chris, he knew that the story had probably entered the later stage, so he could no longer take it easy. It only took 1 or 2 minutes for the two sides to exchange information, and the specific details were all said during the drive, and they finally arrived at the gate of the college before sunset. No security guards came out to greet them, only a few zombies were stopped by the gate, roaring at the people outside the gate. Chris and his friends got off the car immediately with their weapons. Luo Guang also took out his familiar Beretta 92 FS pistol and a belt full of magazines from the trunk. These were the weapons he asked the X organization to prepare. Chris looked at Luo Guang's equipment and suggested, do you need a big guy? Luo Guang shook his head and said, enough. I will go in and look for survivors first. If you encounter special infected people, don't force them, just call me to solve them. He vaguely remembered that in the comics, the three of them acted separately at the beginning. Luo Guang saw Chris nod, and he climbed over the wall without looking back and entered the campus. Gunshots rang out, and he came to harvest the dead. How did he suddenly become the commander? Pierce, who graduated from a military academy, was a little dissatisfied with the other party's eccentricity. The other party was not a member of his team, so it was fine if he didn't report to the captain Chris, but it was too much if he didn't discuss it. Chris smiled and said, he didn't command us, he just gave us advice. Mela and Luo Guang were not familiar with each other, so she didn't respond. Okay, the captain didn't mind, so Pierce had nothing to say. Chris put away his smile, got into the state in a second, took out his mobile phone and looked at it, and said, Pierce, there is no signal here. Drive back and contact the Far East branch of BSAA and ask them to send someone over, and then return here for support. Although Professor Dag lost contact at Malharvey College, and Luo Guang also said that the school might have a virus research institute, there was no definite evidence, so Chris couldn't let the BSAA organization come to investigate just because of the other party's one-sided statement. Now that they have confirmed that there is a biochemical crisis in the school, they naturally have to call for support immediately. On the other hand, he didn't make such an arrangement because Pierce was young, but because he knew how to use people and make use of his strengths. Pierce was particularly good at 2 courses in the military academy, one was sniping and the other was driving, so he was able to keep up with Luo Guang's express train just now. Got it. Pierce was not dissatisfied because he could not follow the enemy to kill. Calling for support was also an important task. Mara, you and I will act separately to find Professor Dag and other survivors. Don't be stubborn when you encounter special monsters, call for support. Chris then gave an order to another team member. Mela replied with a got it and turned to enter the campus. Hey, Mela, be careful. Pierce, who had just got on the car, leaned out of the window and shouted at Mela. You too. Mela smiled and entered the campus with Chris. Luo Guang was not moving forward aimlessly. Although he only knew the plot of Malhai's Desire in general, he still knew how Professor Dag and Mela died. That's why he asked Chris and the others to call him when they encountered special infected people, and rushed into the campus to find Professor Dag, who was seriously injured and unconscious, as soon as possible. He was not familiar with Professor Dag, but he was a respectable virus expert who could make a lot of contributions in the field of antibiochemistry, so he would save him if he could. The school was closed and far from the city hospital, so for the safety of students, the president of the college purchased a lot of expensive medical equipment and built several special wards, where Dag was placed to recuperate after being injured. Because the X organization had shown Luo Guang the map of the school a long time ago, he quickly came to the building where the ward was located. "I hope I'm not late," Luo Guang prayed in his heart and jumped directly to the 5th floor by stepping on the outer wall. The school was built in a hot and humid area, so the corridor was not sealed. He turned over and entered the corridor on the 5th floor. As a result, he happened to see a special monster standing in front of a door. It seemed that the room was the ward where Professor Dag was. The monster was covered with glands, and only half of the human face had not mutated, which made him know that the other party was also a beauty when he was alive. The monster also noticed Luo Guang, but it just turned its head to look at him and did not actively attack him. It immediately waved its tentacles to destroy the wooden door after turning its head. "Don't even think about it," Luo Guang flew towards the enemy. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 546. Luo Guang flew up and swung the straight knife in his hand, cutting the enemy into pieces before he could react. The expression of the enemy who was cut into several pieces remained unchanged, very dull, as if it was not him who was attacked. Luo Guang did not relax his vigilance. This monster seemed to be the same type of monster as the beauty beast in the Resident Evil 6 game. In order to prevent the poison gas with C virus in its body from spreading into the room, he kicked the enemy's fragments away before finishing off the enemy. "Chris, Luo Guang, I just encountered a special infected person. She killed all the survivors in the church. I couldn't deal with her." Mila explained the situation concisely in the communication. She was confident in her ability, so she didn't notify Luo Guang to help. Mila quickly explained her battle situation and provided intelligence to others. "I defeated her twice, but the enemy mutated every time she was defeated. Just now, the enemy suddenly stopped, and seemed to shout Nana and ran away. In fact, she fell into a disadvantage after the enemy mutated for the second time. If the enemy hadn't stopped attacking, she might have died." Luo Guang knew what was going on, and he said he got it and went back to find Professor Dag, who was still in a coma. The special enemy that Mela was facing should come to him, so he didn't have time to wait for Professor Dag to wake up. He directly used the hardened armor to make an injection needle and injected the other party with the rebirth series of potions. After so many years of iteration, this rebirth potion is very powerful and leaves no trace after use, and no residue can be detected by anyone. Professor Dag slowly woke up, opened his eyes, looked at Luo Guang but didn't say anything. His body has recovered as before, but he was in a coma for a short time, so his mind was still a little confused after waking up. Luo Guang first asked Professor Dag to slow down, and he opened the team's communication channel. "I found Professor Dag, and no other survivors were found along the way except him." Chris responded to him immediately. "I also found a survivor here, Professor Dag's nephew. Where are you? You are not familiar with the school and don't know where the comprehensive building is. I will take the professor to the gate directly." Chris and his friends definitely didn't know the structure of the school, so Luo Guang asked them to gather at the entrance gate. Suddenly a zombie appeared from the corner. Because Chris needed to hold down the send button with one hand to speak, he quickly pulled out the pistol with one hand and shot. "Okay, we'll meet there." As soon as he finished speaking, he had killed the zombie, put away the pistol and picked up the assault rifle again. Pierce, who was driving, also entered the communication range of the intercom and immediately reported the situation. The people from the Far East branch said that it would take at least half a day for the first team to reach Malhai College. Received. Luo Guang hung up the call and looked at Professor Dag. "Your nephew is fine, let's leave here first." Professor Dag held a letter in his hand, which was given to him by his ex-girlfriend, and said, "There is a helicopter in the basement of this school. We can use that thing to evacuate." Although he has not figured out why Luo Guang is here, what is the situation now? And his body was pierced by tentacles, and it was fine to survive the disaster, but the wound healed so quickly, and there was no pain at all when pressing the wound. This does not make sense at all. But seeing that the situation is more urgent now, he temporarily hid these questions in his heart and only told the other party the important information about the helicopter. Luo Guang shook his head and said, "There is a biochemical crisis in the school. I will take you to a safe place first." He felt that a monster full of murderous intent was coming towards him. Professor Dag got off the bed, picked up the satchel and the used M9 Glock pistol beside him. However, just as they left the room and came to the corridor, a monster suddenly jumped in from outside, making an unclear sound. "Professor, go down the stairs on the other side." Luo Guang directly protected the professor behind him, and at the same time stuffed the headset with intercom function to Professor Dag, use this to contact Chris and others directly and meet up with them. "Then you hurry up. Don't get in the way," Luo Guang said, and took the initiative to kill the enemy. This new monster looks like a spider, with a hideous human face in the position of the spider's mouthparts, and an organ like a human brain bulging on its back, which is full of tentacles swinging irregularly. Not only that, there are eyes on various parts of its body, all staring at Luo Guang. There are only 2 normal humans at the scene. Professor Dag was knocked down by Nana before, so he is naturally no match for his best friend, so it can only be another human who killed his best friend. In addition, Luo Guang was now wearing the uniform of MaleProtagonist College, which made the monster even more angry, so it focused its attention on Luo Guang from beginning to end. As soon as Luo Guang moved, the monster reacted. Its tentacles attacked from the center, and its spider-like legs attacked from both sides at the same time, directly filling the entire corridor. Professor Dag had not run far yet, so Luo Guang did not use his full strength for the time being. He saw that the enemy had focused his attention on him, so he directly bumped into the door next to him and avoided the attack. The monster really set its target on itself. It ignored Professor Dag, who ran downstairs and rushed directly into the room. Luo Guang took this opportunity to quickly empty the magazine of his pistol. The monster was hit in the face by a bullet, and the severe pain made it unconsciously retreat. But it is easy to enter this room, but it is not so easy to exit. The monster is too big. Even if it goes out backwards, it can only exit with small steps because it cannot stretch its legs. Luo Guang rushed forward, ignoring the attack of the enemy's tentacles, and stabbed the enemy's face with the previous injection needle. The injection needle this time is naturally not a rebirth potion, but his Shinra virus. The monster's body is Indi Vergara, the president of the student union of MaleProtagonist College. She has excellent academic and sports performance, and for some reason is good at using crossbows. Unlike previous villains, Indi did not cause the biochemical crisis in the college to spread the biochemical virus. All she did was to avenge her best friend. The object of revenge is Gracia Draniches, the principal of MaleProtagonist College. She is Daglight's former lover. After discovering the zombies, she privately invited Professor Dag to investigate the cause. As a result, in order to maintain the reputation of the school, the principal prohibited Professor Dag from contacting BSAA for support, which led to Professor Dag's loss of contact. Gracia didn't know that it was her constant concealment of the facts and even her behavior of burning the bodies of students that angered Indi, who only wanted her to apologize and disclose the truth. On the other hand, Indi continued to upgrade her methods in her repeated failures, eroding her conscience and infecting more and more people. Even if she killed the zombies that suddenly appeared in front of the students and announced the truth about the campus biochemical crisis, those students still believed the principal's words. In the end, all the students angrily scolded her for being the main culprit in creating the zombies, followed by all kinds of ridicule and slander. In fact, what the principal said was indeed the truth of this biochemical crisis, and Indy was the mastermind of the biochemical crisis. But in Indy's view, she and her best friend were the victims, and everything she did was just. Therefore, she was obsessed and finally ordered Nana, who had become a monster, to infect students indiscriminately on campus, and hell was on earth. All of the above is what Luo Guang saw through the Shinra virus injected into Indy's body, which was like a revolving lantern of memories. It can be regarded as figuring out the truth of this incident. However, there is one thing that is different from the comics, that is, the person who provided the C virus to Indy was not fake Aida Kara or the original Kara, but a person he did not know. In Indy's memory, although the man was wearing a hood throughout the whole process, Luo Guang could still see that the measurements did not match. Soon, the amount of C virus in the spider monster Indy was reduced to a threshold by the Shinra virus, which was no longer enough to support her mutated body and repair her wounds. In this case, there is no need to use high-powered weapons to eliminate the opponent. Luo Guang did not agree with Indy's approach. He sighed, replaced the pistol with a new magazine, and gave the weak Indy a fatal blow. After firing 5 magazines of bullets, Indy, who kept muttering Nana's name, finally stopped, and he also recovered his Shinra virus from her. An unknown virus was sensed, and it has been named C virus according to the name of the adapter. Special antibodies were found and are being analyzed. They are confirmed to be C virus antibodies. It is speculated that the original host is a C virus adapter. This was a bit unexpected for Luo Guang. The most important point is that when there are antibodies in Indy's body, the C virus itself will not change too much and will be closer to the original sample. He gave the system an order to generate Jax virus antibodies that had been recorded before and merge them into the C virus. In Biochemistry 6, the enhanced C virus was made by adding Jax virus antibodies to the original one. Luo Guang let the system do its own work, and he climbed over the balcony to the next room because the spider monster blocked the way out of the room. Back at the school gate, he saw that Professor Dag had met up with Chris and his nephew. Luo Guang, are you okay? Where are the enemies? Chris put down his gun with vigilance. He had learned from Professor Dag that the special monster that fought with Mero was looking for trouble with Luo Guang. Luo Guang said with a relaxed look, I'm fine. That guy was big and weak. He couldn't move his body after entering the room, so I killed him directly. Professor Dag breathed a sigh of relief and then introduced to Luo Guang, this is my nephew, Riki Tozawa. Hello, thank you for saving my uncle. You're welcome, Luo Guang replied casually, turned his head and asked Chris, where are Mela and Pierce? They are cleaning up the school zombies together and continue to look for survivors. Luo Guang nodded and said, I'll go find out if there is a secret research institute. You stay here to watch Professor Dag and the others. Chris was very confident in Luo Guang's fighting ability and answered directly, okay. Professor Dag and the others have not received professional training. If they encounter any special monsters, they can't stop them, so he is here. Luo Guang did not find any information about the research institute from Indy's memory, so he went straight to the underground area of the school based on his many years of experience. After cleaning up the mutated zombies of 5 circuit maintenance personnel sent from the outside world, he continued to move forward. During this time, he began to fuse the perfect C virus that he had just created in his body. It didn't take long for the system to analyze the C virus in Indy's body. Soon after it integrated Jax virus antibodies into the C virus, it created an enhanced C virus. But the performance of this enhanced C virus is not outstanding at all, and there are still some flaws. Even if the Shinra virus is fused with this thing, the improvement will not be too great. Previously, the FEV virus in Li Qingxian's body and the Speed virus in Hina's body were not made based on the T virus or the ancestral virus, so the improvement of the Shinra virus was not small. Or some people say that many T virus subspecies of the same root and species were fused before. But that was before the appearance of the Shinra virus, so Luo Guang decided to personally perfect this enhanced C virus. Just now, he successfully created the perfect C virus he wanted, and took the opportunity to fuse it alone. Because Luo Guang conducted a lot of analysis and testing during the manufacturing process, the system does not need to repeat the previous steps when it is fused, nor does it need to tell Luo Guang what skills the C virus has. It only needs to quantify the physical attributes for him. The first ability was named Swallowing by Luo Guang, and the second ability was named Transformation. The reason why these two skills are put together is because this is a combination skill. As early as when he merged with the T Veronica virus, he gained an ability called Assimilation of Similar Tissues, and the first time he used this ability was to eat Alexia. This ability is not practical, and the speed of replenishing energy is not as fast as eating energy food directly. However, this ability has also ushered in its own evolution. Luo Guang can directly devour through clothes, and the devouring speed is extremely fast. He can fully utilize the human body being devoured, instead of only devouring the part of flesh and blood infected with the T Veronica virus. As for the skill effect of transformation, it allows him to instantly become the appearance of the object he devours. If this is just to change the appearance of that person, Luo Guang can do it now, and there is naturally no need to mention it specifically. At present, after he transforms into the person being devoured, he can also completely obtain the target's memory and body movement habits, so that he can better imitate the object being devoured. This trick is mainly used in infiltration, and it is a new ability developed for him to infiltrate the Apocalypse organization in the future. In addition to these two skills, Luo Guang's personal attributes have also been refurbished. The current attributes are strength, flexibility, and endurance, all of which have reached 28. In simple terms, he is now as strong as he was in the normal enhanced state before. On the other hand, Luo Guang suddenly found that his willpower attribute had no clear value at some point, and became unquantifiable. This is an adjustment made by the system after discovering that humans are not creatures that can be quantified in everything. Meow, the abbreviated organization names such as BSA seem to sound bad after adding dot, so why don't I just not add it in the future? Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 547. Luo Guang checked most of the underground area, and finally there was only one room with a password lock left. This is also where Professor Dag said the helicopter for evacuation was placed. Because Professor Dag's ex-girlfriend had thoughtfully written the password, Luo Guang did not need to crack the electronic lock to open the door. He glanced around and said to himself, "There is really a virus research institute. However, the area here is not large, and it should be called a virus research room to be precise. And there is no helicopter as the principal said, only a wide range of research equipment and virus storage cabinets, which are arranged as a small research room." Luo Guang was not in a hurry to investigate the virus storage cabinet and computer, but first confirmed whether there was any surveillance here. After confirming that there was no surveillance equipment, he went to check the virus storage cabinet and confirmed that the type of virus inside was indeed the original sample of the C virus. However, he had obtained a better perfect C virus, so he did not inject the original sample, nor did he deliberately destroy these viruses, and he also took away 3 virus samples. Anyway, the X organization already has a C virus sample, and he would not change the situation if he took the virus back. Luo Guang only planned to give 1 sample to the X organization. He planned to take one of the other 2 samples to the GIMZ Institute to study vaccines and antidotes. This was another business he prepared for the GIMZ troops. In fact, the products of the institute had recently passed the test and entered the production and sales stage. He planned to take the last virus sample to the Mother Nest base for Jasmine and others to study for fun. It would be best if they could produce some results that would benefit mankind. In order to prevent these gifted researchers from making something destructive out of boredom. Then Luo Guang hacked into the computer in the laboratory and quickly checked the data on it. There was no problem with the authenticity and accuracy of the research data, and there was also some information proving that this was done by the Apocalypse organization. But the more this happened, the more Luo Guang was sure that this was another self-directed and self-acted by Kara, because with the confidentiality awareness of the Apocalypse organization, it would not store any information related to its own organization in the computer. However, it was in Kara's interest to provoke a conflict between the X organization and the Apocalypse organization, so Luo Guang would naturally go with the flow and not raise any questions. After doing these things, Luo Guang took out the spy-specific micro camera and took pictures of the situation here. Kara should remember the number of virus samples stored here, but she would not say anything if she found a problem. Even if the other party asked it implicitly, Luo Guang could use the excuse that maybe the two mutant monsters used the virus samples here to have different mutations. Kara certainly did not dare to question this, otherwise she could not explain why she knew the number of virus samples so well. After finishing what he should do, Luo Guang locked the door again and prepared to return to the ground to tell Chris and the others about the situation. "Handsome guy, did you find anything good?" a slightly familiar voice suddenly sounded from behind. "Looking for you," Luo Guang replied casually, turned around and looked at the thick pipe. "Have you found me a long time ago?" the other party came out from behind the bunker without a trace of surprise. "Don't pretend, you just got here," Luo Guang said the other party's name, Ada. The other party did not admit his identity and walked out of the shadows. Luo Guang looked at the person who looked like Ada, and asked again, "Why? Do you think I recognized the wrong person?" "How do you know I'm not the person who looks like me?" Perhaps because she felt it was a bit confusing, Ada asked in Chinese. Luo Guang said, "The temperament is different, the tone of speech is also different, and he doesn't call me handsome, but hey." Ada smiled and asked proactively, "By the way, I didn't expect you to be here. Why don't you stay at home with your wife? Did you have a quarrel?" Ada didn't take the highway when she came here, but took the mountain road. When she arrived at the hillside near Malhai College, she happened to see Luo Guang, who met Chris and others with a telescope. Ada avoided Pierce and others and also searched for the underground area of the school as soon as possible. Luo Guang felt that the other party wanted to quarrel with him, so he said back, "I often accompany them, okay. But you let Leon stay alone every day, he is so pitiful." "I dare not go to the lighthouse country," Ada directly blamed, complaining, "and this is not my fault, it is Leon, a workaholic, who works every day without holidays, how can I accompany him?" They exchanged contact information, and the number of contacts between each other was much more than in the Resident Evil game, and the relationship between the two was naturally much deeper than the game. At this point, Ada couldn't help but say, "If Leon was half as good at slacking off as you are, he wouldn't have to stay alone every day." She was not busy working every day, otherwise why did she work so hard to make money before? "Okay, what is the purpose of your coming here?" Luo Guang felt that the small talk was almost over, and it was time to talk about business. "Aren't you afraid that I will catch you and take you back to Simmons as his wife? If you want to catch me, you would have done it a long time ago, and you are still chatting with me here." Ada felt that she was also taking advantage of Leon's light, so that the other party gave up catching her. It was the first time the two sides met, and Luo Guang was not polite to him. Luo Guang would not fall for it, and threatened, "Don't avoid the topic. You are Leon's girlfriend, not his wife." Ada was not willing to be embarrassed every time she met the other party, and replied, "You are the one who avoids the question, right? I asked the question first at the beginning. And this incident has nothing to do with me. I came here to do good things." Luo Guang continued to ignore the other party's initial questions and looked at the other party suspiciously. "What good thing?" "Helping a father find his daughter who has been missing for many days. Ada is trying to change herself, so sometimes she will take the initiative to help when the road is rough. However, in order to prevent Simmons from finding out, She basically used a pseudonym and did not open any detective agency. You would do such a thing? Luo Guang still didn't believe it. If Ada wanted to change her ways, he might believe it for Leon's sake, but he wouldn't believe that Ada would take the initiative to take care of things other than biochemical incidents. Ada snorted and said, "Believe it or not, I really took on such a task." She took out a photo from her coat. Inside was a girl wearing the uniform of Malhav College. Her name is Nana. She hasn't contacted her family for several months. Have you met her here? Luo Guang was impressed by this face and name. He raised his hand to cover half of his face in the photo and replied, "This girl mutated into a monster and was killed by me." Ada was stunned. She just asked as usual, but she didn't expect that the other party had actually seen this girl. She came back to her senses and asked again, "I have one last thing to ask. Do you know that woman who looks very similar to me? Leon told you." Although Luo Guang told Leon about Carla, he only told him that there was someone who looked exactly like Ada and asked him not to mistake him for the wrong person. He did not tell Leon about Carla's identity. Leon didn't ask further questions, he just wondered why the other party had plastic surgery to look like Ada, and was worried that someone was going to do harm to Ada. As for this part of the content, Luo Guang did not hide it, so it was not surprising that Aiden knew about it. Aiden nodded. This was what Leon contacted her on his own initiative. You said before that Leon didn't have time to contact you. Luo Guang exposed the other party's previous lies and asked, "So what if you know the other party's identity?" "I want to kill the fake body." "Don't you feel disgusted knowing that a person very similar to yourself exists?" Ada had an unhappy look on her face. Luo Guang corrected, "The other party's bust is a little bigger than yours. If you want to deal with the other party, then you can just be captured by me and given to Simmons. The other party is living at Simmons' house." When Ada heard Luo Guang's words, she gritted her teeth and said, "What you say is really annoying." "I'm sorry." Luo Guang shrugged and said with an indifferent expression, "Anyway, that person will self-destruct sooner or later without you taking action. Just be careful not to expose your relationship with Leon." "You don't need to teach me." After saying that, Ada turned and left. "What's going on here really has nothing to do with you," Luo Guang confirmed again. "Guess for yourself." After saying that, the angry Ada turned around to leave the basement, but was suddenly held down by someone's shoulders. Luo Guang, who came behind her at some point, shook his head and said, "Don't leave in a hurry." Ada's heart stopped as Luo Guang held her shoulders down, and she thought of various possibilities. For example, Luo Guang really wanted to take him back to Simmons. Ada dared to take the initiative to appear in front of Luo Guang before because she knew from the Guangming cult incident that the other party was not completely loyal to Simmons. She turned back and kept her face calm. "What are you going to do?" Luo Guang's sunny smile made Ada feel nervous. Half an hour later, Luo Guang returned to the ground. He did not contact Chris and the others immediately. Instead, he ran into the forest and called the person who issued the mission on his satellite phone. Kara asked Luo Guang to dress up as a student and sneak into the investigation, thinking that the other party would spend a lot of time, but she did not expect that the other party would call her so soon. As soon as she answered the phone, she heard Luo Guang say, "One piece of good news, one piece of bad news. If you have anything to say, just tell me." Kara, who was busy researching, didn't answer and let the other party just fart. Although the other party did not respond, Luo Guang did not dwell on this point and directly reported the situation. "There was a biological crisis in Malha College, and I found the secret research room in the underground area. But I was a step too late, and the research room had been destroyed and burned down. Everything." After seeing Ada, he temporarily changed his plan and asked the other party to destroy everything in the laboratory. As for the virus samples he had obtained before, he only left 2 for the GIMZ Research Institute and the Brood Research Institute. On the other hand, The C virus in Indy's body has been destroyed by Luo Guang. No one on either side can use the virus in his body to restore the perfect C virus he created in his body. Luo Guang did not let go of the remaining C virus in Nana's body. He destroyed it before meeting at the gate. His purpose was to prevent Kara from obtaining research data through this biological crisis. Aiden naturally agreed to Luo Guang's request. First, she didn't dare to refuse Luo Guang, and second, this was not a bad thing. Although she didn't know the specific reason why Luo Guang didn't destroy the research institute himself, she could make a rough guess based on the identity of the members of Luo Guang's organization, and she also understood the reason why Luo Guang would appear in this school. Who did it? Kara finally put down the test tube in her hand and focused on the call with Luo Guang. This plot was not arranged in her script. Ada Wang. Luo Guang did not keep the other party in suspense, and directly said the name, and continued, "I am chasing the other party." "Who asked you to chase?" Kara was anxious. If Ada was caught, Simmons would have no place for her in his heart. Well, the task of arresting Ada is still on the task board. It was issued by the boss. Luo Guang looked innocent. Kara paused and immediately found a reason. "What about the task I assigned to you? You just gave up? Do you remember what the leader told you? Listen to my orders and collect evidence quickly." The fire extinguishing system of the laboratory was destroyed, but the ventilation system was blowing in air. "I can't put out this fire for a while." Luo Guang said that he was powerless. He suddenly stopped and said, "If I say I didn't catch up with Ada, would you be happier?" Kara was indeed secretly happy when she heard the first half of the sentence, but she was still very unhappy when someone said that, so she replied, "How did you lose her?" Luo Guang said what he had prepared. "The other party ran into the woods, and I chased after him all the way, but the other party may have used a grappling gun, so the footprints disappeared. Although Ada's grappling gun was taken away by him before, it was a long time ago, and now she has got a new one." Kara didn't have a clear understanding of Luo Guang's ability, so she didn't think there was anything wrong with this reason. She suppressed the joy in her heart and said in a flat tone, "In this case, don't tell the leader about this matter, don't let him be happy for nothing." Kara now just wants Simmons to immerse himself in her gentle country. Luo Guang brought the topic back to the mission and said, "Okay. By the way, the people from the BSAA organization are also here at Malharvey College. I just happened to run into them." The people from the BSAA organization are here too. Kara felt exhausted. Why did a simple plan have so many unexpected situations? Luo Guang added, "Yes, they were originally just looking for someone, but a biochemical crisis occurred here. They have contacted the Far East branch to send support." "I know. But the laboratory was burned down, so your mission failed this time." Kara hung up the phone after saying that. She was talking about Luo Guang, and actually she was also talking about the failure of her plan, but she was smart and didn't dwell on the failure of the plan. Since the laboratory was burned down, the clues were also destroyed, and it was reasonable that we couldn't continue the investigation. Kara thought to herself and continued to immerse herself in her C-virus research. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 548. Support is coming. Chris narrowed his eyes and looked at the other side of the mountain. 3 helicopters were coming. Pierce, who was resting, smiled bitterly and said, "They are too late." In fact, the Far East branch was very fast. The reason why he said this is because Luo Guang had basically cleared out the zombies in Malharvey College during this period of time. The support from the Far East branch can only do some finishing work. Since the support is here, I will go back first. Luo Guang just came out of the school and saw the Psi helicopter flying over. He has had a good time recently. This time he specially cleaned up the zombies in Malhav College just to remind himself of his experience on Benoi Island. Luo Guang saw a lot of things from Indy's memory. Even though Indy was the student union president of the college, after her father went bankrupt and could only work as a university cafeteria chef to support her schooling, the attitude of those students towards her changed 180 degrees. Bullying is just a common thing in this so-called aristocratic school. When Indy turned into a monster and the school broke out in a biochemical crisis, all kinds of human life also took place on this campus. Luo Guang saw from Indy's memory the students who were eaten by zombies, the poor people who were pushed out by their friends to be shields, the infatuated lovers who chose to jump off the building with their girlfriends who turned into zombies, and the collapsed people who hanged themselves because they couldn't bear the pressure. Finally, he also saw how Indy dealt with all the students who hid in the church and prayed for God's blessing. Luo Guang took a trip to the hell on earth, and now it's time to go back and replenish the energy of love. Thank you for your hard work. Chris nodded, and the next finishing work can be left to the support. After Luo Guang sent the virus to 2 research institutes, he returned to Africa. He first reviewed his homework with Ashley, and then continued to follow up secretly on President Seymour's affairs. The video of Minister of Defense Wilson was spread too widely. The Lighthouse National Congress could not turn a deaf ear and pretend that this matter did not exist. In the end, it still launched the investigation procedure against the other party, Seymour. At this time, President Seymour began to regret his previous decision. The bad things Wilson had done had nothing to do with him, but in order to catch the other party's handle and increase his influence in the military, he decided to cover up the other party after knowing the truth, and let himself be involved in this incident. After the incident, he made a lot of calls to congressmen, but judging from the attitude of those people staying away from him, the situation is not good. On the other side, Leon is investigating the robbery of Jason's body. Because Wilson did not mention Leon, no one bothered him. President Seymour was worrying too much. Just when the ruling D and the opposition party were deadlocked, the X organization, led by Simmons, joined the battlefield and turned this incident directly into a political struggle. As the recording of the call between Wilson and Seymour was found and exposed, the impeachment procedure was still initiated. The ruling D side decisively abandoned Seymour under the ironclad evidence, no longer supported the other party and immediately drew a clear line. They are so ruthless that they even voted in favor of the impeachment vote to establish their image as the ruling D who would sacrifice relatives for the sake of justice and not help relatives. I didn't expect that you were the only one who sent me in the end. President Seymour looked at Leon, who came in with a sad face. Although it was a direct impeachment, he was not driven out of the White House as soon as the vote was passed. Seymour still has 3 days to complete the handover. The handover object is not the new president, but the vice president who performs the duties of the president. Although the vice president is just a symbol without administrative power in normal times, according to the regulations of the Lighthouse State, the vice president will directly serve as the new president of the Lighthouse State after the president is impeached. This person's name is Adam Benford. Leon walked in and said, "Madam and others have already got in the car and left." Although President Seymour is still in the White House, he and his relatives cannot live in the White House. They have to make room for the next president in advance. Thank you. If it was in the past, Seymour would definitely not thank him for this. Is there anything else I can help you with next? Leon has very complicated thoughts about Seymour, but it must be said that he can become the leader of the DSO organization at such a young age because of the support of the other party. And the other party's political achievements in the Lighthouse country are also remarkable. The only mistake is to shield Wilson. Seymour shook his head and said, "Next, you should do what you should do. There is no need to help me. Otherwise, the next president will put my label on you." Leon naturally knows the truth that a new emperor appoints new ministers, but he himself is not a pure bureaucrat, so he will take the initiative to come to help. Yes. Take care. He did not waste the other party's kindness. He said something and turned to leave. Seymour sighed deeply under the setting sun. Impeachment is not the end of this incident. Wilson is dead, but he will have to defend his sheltering behavior in court later. There were no accidents during the handover process, and President Adam officially took office. Although he is not a member of the X organization, he is a good friend of Simmons, so he looks like a kind grandfather, but he is not a harmless person. After finishing his inaugural speech, Adam summoned the head of DSO in the White House office. Leon said neither humbly nor arrogantly, "Good afternoon, President Adam, do you have a new mission for me?" Adam got straight to the point, "The existence of the DSO organization and your position will not change." He had investigated Leon's background information and knew that he was a nonpartisan and not a member of Seymour. And from Leon's personal experience, Adam also saw that he was a man full of justice, otherwise he would not have become a policeman. Yes, Leon's face remained unchanged. From the information Luo Guang gave him, President Adam seemed to have many similarities with former President Graham, and he and the other party should be able to get along harmoniously. However, seeing is believing. While President Adam was observing him, he was also observing the other party. President Adam and Leon were not familiar with each other, and he said in a business-like manner, "Tell me about your work at hand." Seymour talked about DSO's current work when he handed over, but he still wanted to hear from Leon in person. First of all, the body of the assassin who assassinated Wilson was robbed. Because there was no camera at the assassination site and there was no clue about the criminal, the investigation was temporarily stagnant. In fact, Leon had already investigated this matter a long time ago, but because of Seymour's matter, he had been pretending to be very busy. President Adam put forward his own idea, could it be someone who knew Jason? Leon still did his best and replied, "All the other members of the Mad Dog team died, and we have also investigated his relatives and friends, and all of them have alibis." President Adam nodded and asked, "Are there any other tasks?" "Yes." Leon explained in detail, "We DSO previously conducted a joint operation with the CIA to investigate the recent rise of biological and chemical weapons trading, but the clues were cut off. However, in recent days, the BSA North American branch contacted us and provided new clues, allowing us to successfully lock on a suspect named Glenn Arias. We are following the new clues to collect evidence on the suspect." The BSA North American branch was not targeting Glenn Arias at first, but the branch's undercover agent Casey accidentally got the news. Then Chris saw Leon investigating the sale of biological and chemical weapons on the Avengers website, so the two organizations came together. "Well done." President Adam took the initiative to show his goodwill. "If you have any difficulties in the matter of anti-biochemical crisis, you must tell me. This concerns the lives of many people, and your DSO has a great responsibility." Leon is no longer a fledgling agent, but a veteran of 3 dynasties. He will not easily believe the other party's words. But he still looked solemn and answered seriously, "I know." The two talked about many things again before Leon left the office. His face did not change, but he was relieved. The results and atmosphere of this meeting were good, and President Adam did not look like a bad person. Now it depends on what the other party does next. Leon was about to go back to the dormitory to rest for a while, but was suddenly stopped by a beautiful figure. He looked at the other party and said, "Shen Mei." After the White House was attacked again, the number of agents responsible for security increased again. Leon is rarely on duty here now, so naturally he can't remember the names and appearances of all the security agents. But the other party just rescued Seymour from Jason recently, so he knew the other party. "Yes. Are you free later? I want to talk to you about something." Shen Mei's face was not good, and makeup still couldn't cover her heavy eye bags. She has been suffering from insomnia these days. Shen Mei dreams every day that Jason, who has turned into a monster, grabs her, asks her why, and crushes her with his strong hands. Leon thought about his arrangements and said, I am free, but can you leave your post now? I have finished my shift. Shen Mei pursed her lips and made up her mind, I want to ask you something. I know a coffee shop, not many people. Leon wondered if his luck with love had come again. But he also has a girlfriend now, so he didn't invite the other party to his dormitory. Leon misunderstood the other party's intention and didn't say anything, and Shen Mei was a little nervous when the matter came, so after the coffee was served, neither of them spoke. In the end, Leon took the initiative to speak and said, Is there anything? Shen Mei gritted her teeth, looking like she was ready to confess. In order to lower his impression, Leon said, Although I am free now, I may have a mission at any time. I'm sorry. Shen Mei took a deep breath and finally told the reason why she was looking for him. Is Jason still alive? Do you know him? Before, Leon told President Adam that he had investigated Jason's relatives and friends, but he didn't expect to be slapped in the face so quickly. Shen Mei said, You should know the truth about what Wilson did, right? My brother was killed by Wilson's human experiment. Then she told him about her acquaintance with Jason. Just saying these words made her feel relieved. Leon was silent for a while, and asked, The fact that Jason's body was stolen was not made public, how did you know? Shen Mei had said this, so she didn't hide it. I wiretapped the president's office to reveal the truth. But when President Seymour fell, I stopped wiretapping and recovered the wiretap. Leon told the other party the answer after hearing this. Jason's body was indeed stolen, but many agents and I have confirmed that the other party is dead. Then he said, I hope you can tell President Adam about these things again in person. Although he could understand the other party's motives, many people died in the White House attack, including the agents he knew. Shen Mei didn't know how to answer. Leon added fuel to the fire and said in a low voice, You did unnecessary things. No one would have died. Because Wilson was going to tell the truth at the press conference that day, but... Impossible. Shen Mei clapped her hands on the table and stood up, interrupting the other party loudly. Wilson is not the kind of person who will reform. Leon said calmly, Be quiet, you are disturbing other guests. He didn't want to be blacklisted by this cafe. Shen Mei was stunned, and quickly apologized to the other guests and sat down again. Do you think the video of Wilson's death was fake? Leon said without any mercy. Originally, no one would have to die, and Wilson, Summer and others would have received the legal punishment they deserved. Shen Mei opened her mouth wide. If Lion's words were true, then what was the meaning of what she and Jason had done these days? President Adam was a little surprised to see Leon coming back and knocking on the door with a woman, and asked, What's wrong? Leon asked Shen Mei to tell the president in person. Shen Mei was like a walking corpse, repeating what she and Leon had said intermittently, but she didn't mention what Leon said. President Adam's face was heavy. He didn't expect there were so many stories here, and he understood why Leon brought the other party here instead of arresting him directly. He asked Leon, what do you think? Leon only mentioned, it was also her who saved former President Seymour. President Adam understood what the other party meant. This meant that Shen Mei finally changed her mind, and her revenge on Jason was indeed because Wilson and Seymour had done something wrong to them. But the country has its own laws, and the family has its own rules. What they did was indeed a violation of laws and regulations. So simply letting the other party go would only encourage this kind of lynching. He looked at Shen Mei, who was in a trance, and asked, Agent Shen Mei, since you chose to tell me this, you should also know that you have done something wrong, right? Shen Mei nodded and said, I am willing to be punished by law. President Adam shook his head and said, it was the former president who did not uphold justice for you and Jason that led to everything that happened afterwards. It was the country that failed you soldiers fighting on the front line and failed to uphold justice for you and punish the evil in time. The real people who are wrong are us who hold power. Shen Mei's eyes widened. She didn't expect the president to say it was her fault. Leon couldn't help but look at the president. He was actually struggling. Shen Mei and Jason's behavior was definitely wrong from a legal perspective, but after learning about Jason's experience, he couldn't say for sure that Jason and Shen Mei's revenge was wrong. President Adam also made up his mind and said, "Leon. I'm here." Leon came back to his senses. "I will order Shen Mei to join your DSO organization and follow you to solve the biochemical crisis." President Adam said to Shen Mei again, "I want you to redeem yourself in the DSO organization. Do you have any objection?" "No," Shen Mei answered immediately and cheered up a little. President Adam nodded, without paying attention to Shen Mei, and added, "Leon, I will leave her to you." "Yes, Mr. President." Leon took the order and left the presidential office with Shen Mei. Shen Mei followed Leon out of the White House and suddenly said, "Leon, I know that no matter how to redeem yourself, those who died because of my and Jason's plan will not be resurrected." She felt that no matter what happened in the future, she had to live with the sin. Leon was considerate and replied, "Then don't complain about being tired later, I will definitely use you to death." "Yes, Captain," Shen Mei nodded solemnly. Meow, thank you for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 549. President Adam made 3 moves when he took office. The first move was to negotiate with the interim government of Pannenstein to sign a ceasefire. Regardless of whether Wilson's words were true or false, the military expenditure of the lighthouse in Pannenstein was real, and there was not much benefit there, so he made this decision. The second move was to establish an organization called the Field Support Department, abbreviated as FOS. The role of this organization is nominally to facilitate the cooperation of lighthouse agents and logistics personnel around the world. President Adam was also inspired by the joint actions of DSO, CIA, and FBI. He planned to use the FOS organization to coordinate the agents of different organizations in the lighthouse together, and provide services through unified logistics to increase the success rate of agents in various places in performing their tasks. In fact, he planned to control the logistics support so that all agents would provide him with a steady stream of intelligence without knowing it. Among them, the logistics director of FOS is Hannigan, an old acquaintance of Leon, who is also a veteran of 3 dynasties. As for the last fire, President Adam has not lit it yet, but wandered around with a torch, constantly talking to the ministers of various departments to understand the situation, specifically for those who have ulterior motives. Luo Guang didn't pay much attention to the situation in the lighthouse country after Wilson's mess was over. After all, in the more than a month since he returned to Africa from Malhai College, he had many things to do besides Wilson's matter. First, control Wu Song's clone to assign tasks to his subordinates, and follow Terra Sephir's people to perform tasks at biochemical crisis sites around the world. Then control the 2 clones in the GIMS Research Institute and the Mother Nest base to study the antidote and vaccine for the C virus. Luo Guang knows the C virus very well, so with the help of the clone, both sides have made good progress. Then there is the Fakado clone. This clone has previously tracked 2 members of the Apocalypse organization. After confirming that the 2 had returned to their daily lives, Luo Guang controlled his clones to infect the 2 people separately. There was not much useful information on these 2 people, but the Fakado clone still successfully confirmed the base of the Apocalypse organization in the area where the 2 were. Therefore, the next thing for the Fakado clone to do was to infect all the Apocalypse organization in this area and continue to follow the clues. Then there were the matters of Li Qingxian and Hina. After these days, Luo Guang felt that it was almost done, so he asked the 2 people who had been recuperating to find someone to practice with. It was called a sparring match, but the fight was also bloody. Both sides were S-level adapters with strong recovery abilities, so they naturally did not need to worry too much, and the fight was a fist-to-flesh fight. This allowed Luo Guang to collect the abilities of the S-level adapters of the Apocalypse organization while also allowing the Shinra virus to enter the other party's body and hide. With the blessing of the transformation skill, the Shinra virus is more concealed. All this is to prepare for the future war with the Apocalypse organization. In addition to the above matters, Luo Guang also had other things to do, such as work affairs of the African branch, and taking control of the African branch of the X organization. As a result, when he had dealt with everything and was ready to go on vacation, something else came to him. Then I'll go out to work first. Ashley put the coffee in front of everyone. Well, you go and get busy. After watching the other party leave, Luo Guang narrowed his eyes and looked at the person across the tea table. Chris, why are you traveling at public expense again? That's right, just over a month after the Malhaai Academy incident, Chris took Pierce away from the lighthouse country again and went to Nigeria, where the BSA African branch is located. Chris drank Ashley's coffee and gave Pierce a look. The younger brother immediately understood and took out a photo from his briefcase and put it on the tea table. Chris put down the cup and said, Glenn Arias, a former CIA agent. His current identity is the boss of Agua Drinking Water Company, but the CIA suspects that he is secretly a black market dealer of biological weapons that has recently emerged. Just a suspicion. Luo Guang didn't have much impression of this name, because he only remembered the two-person opera in the movie where this person appeared. That's right, so our mission this time is not to arrest, but to track and investigate and collect evidence. After Chris finished talking about his mission this time, he said, according to CIA intelligence, this person flew to Cameroon yesterday. Luo Guang suddenly asked, what does the CIA mission have to do with you? He was worried that Chris was sold and helped count the money. Pierce, an outstanding graduate of the military academy, answered quickly, everything related to the biochemical crisis is related to our BSAA organization. Luo Guang continued to say to Chris, you still have a long way to go in training successors. It's not that the other party's words are problematic, but that he spoke too hastily. Chris sighed, and he himself was not good at these. He explained to Pierce, Luo Guang didn't mean that. He meant why the CIA's work should be pushed to the BSAT. Sorry, Minister Luo. Pierce realized that he had misunderstood and apologized quickly. But he still felt that Luo Guang's statement of not caring about this matter was not good. After these two contacts, Pierce's impression of Luo Guang was now polarized. The other party is a great hero who saves the world. The media reports that he is great and glorious, and he hates the biochemical crisis incident, so he admires and respects him very much at the beginning. But after actual contact, he found that Luo Guang did not look like a hero except for his fighting ability, which gave him a feeling that his idol collapsed. Luo Guang waved his hand and did not care about these things with the other party. He never thought that he was a hero, and he would not think that he must be a savior just because he has a system. Luo Guang said, let's get on with the business. Chris nodded and answered Luo Guang's previous question. The CIA's investigation for several days has aroused the other party's vigilance. It is normal for our BSA to organize mutual learning and communication among various branches, which can cover our real purpose, so we will take over this task. He also added, this is a joint action of us, the CIA, the FBI and the DSO organization led by Leon. That's right, the CIA saw that there were so many organizations involved in this incident, and it was not bad for the FBI in its own country. Chris was not worried that Luo Guang would leak the mission information, and explain the tasks of each party to him. The CIA and FBI are responsible for monitoring Arias's subordinates in and outside the lighthouse country, while Leon took people to the East Slavic Republic to investigate the situation. Luo Guang sorted out the context of this matter and said, so you are responsible for tracking the suspect this time, investigating why the other party went to Cameroon, and follow the clues to see if you can collect evidence. Chris nodded to indicate that the answer was correct. In that case, why don't you go directly to Cameroon? Luo Guang actually thought of this question at the beginning. Nigeria and Cameroon are neighboring countries, but if you want to track, you must not be thousands of miles away from the target. Isn't this just tracking in vain? Pierce answered his question, we didn't take the same flight. When we got off the plane, the CIA said that their local agent had lost track of each other. Rightward arrow. I see. But you didn't think that since you were out, you would take this opportunity to talk to me, right? Luo Guang felt that Chris was not the kind of person who gave up easily. He definitely didn't want to return empty-handed, so he came here to try his luck, otherwise he wouldn't have mentioned Glenn Arias to him. As expected, Chris said, of course not. I thought you were the local boss of the African continent, so I wanted to see if you had any clues. Our branch hasn't received any news of the outbreak of the biochemical crisis recently. That being said, Luo Guang didn't think that the African continent was peaceful. The infrastructure here is too poor, transportation is inconvenient, and communications are not well developed, so if the scale of the biochemical crisis is not large, they may not be able to receive the news. Pierce proposed an idea: with so many warlords fighting in Africa, no one buys biological weapons. Where there are buyers, there are sellers. Perhaps this can be used to find evidence that Arias sold biological weapons. Luo Guang said lightly, there were some before, but no one dares now. Because all the warlords who dared to cross the red line are dead. As long as it is confirmed that a warlord uses biological weapons or creates a biological crisis, he will directly let his clone carry out the decapitation operation. As long as the warlord leader falls, his subordinates will immediately fight for power and fight to the death. When the time comes, they will send troops to destroy the warlords who dare to use biological weapons. With the previous experience, the warlords or ambitious people who are still alive in Africa understand Luo Guang's style of doing things, and naturally no one dares to touch biological weapons anymore. Pierce was very surprised and asked quickly, although the strength of those warlords varies, it is not something that our BSA branch can solve with one branch. Luo Guang explained to the other party, our African branch is different from the North American branch. After I took over, I immediately established a standing army. Although the main training content is still anti-biochemical crisis, their well-trained combat capabilities are still far superior to most warlords. African countries also have different opinions on the BSA having a strong army. Luo Guang naturally thought of this and took the opportunity to propose that they also rotate people to join the anti-biochemical force of the African branch. While supervising them, they can also train their soldiers anti-biochemical skills. After several twists and turns and negotiations, the African countries finally agreed to his suggestion. Pierce was stunned, but thought of another question, and said, didn't those countries protest? Protest what? Interfering with their internal affairs. The company's chaos left a deep impression on them. Except for a few countries that specifically asked us or the GIMS troops to train their military and police, the armies of other countries are no match for zombies. Those countries with frequent wars can only rely on us to face biochemical crises. The African countries suffered the greatest losses in that disaster. After all, humans controlled by the Plaka parasite can also use guns. Luo Guang added, and we didn't interfere with their internal affairs. We BSA have the right to deal with matters involving biochemical crises. In fact, even if they have this power, they must obtain the consent of the territorial country before they can act. Chris took the opportunity to educate Pierce, each branch will make adjustments based on local conditions. Pierce, you should pay attention to this when you go to other branches to perform tasks in the future. Pierce nodded to show that he had learned, I know. Chris finished his coffee, stood up and said, since you don't have any clues, we won't bother you anymore. Luo Guang raised his hand to ask the other party to wait, and then called Wusong's clone. After making the call, he explained to Chris and the other two, I asked Wusong to ask someone familiar. The name of the person who answered the call from Wusong's clone was Susan. She was the service middleman that the Gim's army found when it was first established. When Luo Guang played Wusong, he purchased a lot of weapons, equipment, and intelligence from her. The current Gim's force is much larger than before, and the exclusive service agreement between the two has naturally expired, but the two parties have maintained a good cooperative relationship so far. 5 minutes later, Wusong's clone called back. Luo Guang nodded, tore up a piece of paper and wrote an address on it. This is where Arius might be. Chris took the piece of paper and said, where is this place? Luo Guang replied, a manor purchased by Glenn Arius. You can go there to try your luck, but don't have high hopes. The reason Susan knew about this manor was because she also wanted to buy it, but lost to the other party at the auction. Thank you. Upon hearing this, Chris immediately stood up and left with Pierce. This time Luo Guang did not retain the other party, although he gave Chris an address. But now that he also knows about Glenn Arius, he naturally won't stand idly by. Next, he is going to send his men to Cameroon to investigate the situation. Of course, he also had to arrange the situation in East Slavia. Minister, are you looking for me? Shiva Oloma, who was born in the same year as Shirley, walked in. At the age of 18, she was tall and graceful, and her chest armor had begun to take shape, making her eye-catching. However, Luo Guang was trained. He looked at the other party without changing his expression and nodded, I received the intelligence. It said that a person suspected of being a biological and chemical weapons dealer came to Cameroon. The specific purpose is unknown, so I want you to find 2 acquaintances. Let's go there and investigate together. Shiva was filled with hatred and immediately asked, am I going to arrest the enemy directly? How many bodyguards are there in the target? Luo Guang couldn't help but worry that the other party would be tempted to kill him directly. Although there was no problem in killing the other party, with his current power, he could easily cover up these things. But he still shook his head and said, this is not your target. It's not enough to eliminate just one arms dealer. If you don't uproot the industrial chain up and down, and destroy it together with the biological and chemical weapons factories below, in the end it will just be it's a matter of changing someone else's position. Then why should I investigate? Shiva was puzzled. Sorry, I didn't make it clear before. The suspect has been investigated by people from the North American branch, so our task is to confirm whether there is a hidden biological and chemical weapons manufacturing plant or other things that should not be there in Cameroon. I understand, field investigation mission. Apart from this clue, is there no other information? No, just treat this as a trip and walk around. It has been a long time since Shiva took a vacation. Cameroon happens to include almost all the different natural and cultural features of various regions in Africa. It is known as Mini Africa and is a good tourist destination. Isn't it a bad idea to travel at public expense? Shiva was a little hesitant. She had never traveled before. Luo Guang waved his hand and said, Cameroon is not small, and you can't finish it in a short time. In addition, traveling around in the name of tourism is also helpful to hide your true purpose and avoid arousing the enemy's suspicion, isn't it? Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 550. After leaving the BSA Africa branch building, Chris took Pierce back to the car, which was provided by the CIA. He said, I will contact the CIA first and ask them to collect intelligence and monitor the manor to confirm whether Arius is there. Pierce, you drive. Yes, Pierce likes driving very much. He is responsible for driving every time he goes out with Chris. The CIA immediately sent someone to confirm the situation after learning that there was a new clue. After they lost Arius, they had no clues and could only try their best. Naturally, they would not ask about the source of the intelligence. Chris and his partner, who were on their way to Cameroon, got the exact intelligence from the CIA halfway. They rediscovered Arius and immediately formulated a strict tracking and surveillance plan. The general plan is that the local CIA agents are responsible for monitoring the manor's every move, and when the target leaves the manor, Chris and his partner will be responsible for tracking. Of course, before Chris and his partner take a flight back to Cameroon, if Arius leaves the manor, the CIA agent will also follow him personally, just in time to switch shifts with Chris and his partner, increasing the concealment of the surveillance and tracking. The day after Chris and his partner arrived in Cameroon, Arius, who lived in the manor, drove out again. When Arius went out before, CIA agents also followed him, but were forced to stop the operation halfway and did not gain anything. Because the CIA agents who followed him found that Arius was not alone and there were bodyguards around him, Chris and his team chose to split up this time. Chris, dressed like a tourist, drove a family car modified by the CIA out of the corner of the road and followed Arius' car. Pierce, who was waiting at the next handover point, was now in charge of contacting the CIA and reporting the latest situation. He said, "The other party's bodyguard's car is out." This time, the two sides were connected during the communication, so Chris did not need to press the button to reply, and directly said, "Received." He looked forward, leaning against the car door with one hand to support his head, blocking the single-sided earphone, and holding the steering wheel with the other hand, looking very leisurely. Rock music was also playing in the car, and the rhythmic sound floated out from the half-lowered car window. Soon, a white van and a green pickup truck appeared in his rearview mirror. They were different in model and color from what the CIA agent had seen before. Chris did not speed up, but occupied the lane on the side, allowing the two cars to overtake him and catch up with Arius' car. The pickup truck was in front, and the white van was behind, sandwiching Arius' car in the middle. Those who did not know would think that the people in the two cars were going to attack Arius. Chris told Pierce this information and asked the CIA to record it. After entering the city from the suburbs, he turned a corner and passed by Pierce's car. Pierce immediately set off and began to track. Chris's mission was not over. He drove the car to the parking lot, changed to another car, turned on the computer inside, and it was time for him to support Pierce. Arius' bodyguard immediately reported the situation. "Boss, the car that followed us into the city has left. After all, this is a city main road, so it is normal for other cars to appear behind their convoy, so Pierce has not entered the attention of those bodyguards for the time being." Arius looked relaxed and said, "I know. Just follow the plan." He learned from someone he knew that he had been suspected by the CIA of being involved in the sale of biological and chemical weapons. But that was just a suspicion, and there was no complete evidence, so he did not panic. Of course, he also knew that the CIA would not necessarily follow the law, so he asked his old friend Diego Gomez to lead his bodyguard team to protect him. Arius drove to the underground parking lot of a high-end hotel. Then the van behind him suddenly broke down and stalled, blocking the entire entrance. The person who came down from above was wearing work clothes and looked helpless. He apologized to the person waiting behind him and began to check and repair the vehicle. Pierce was not in the queue of cars entering the underground parking lot. After confirming that the other party had entered the hotel, he reported the situation first, then stopped nearby and went to a nearby beverage store to buy drinks. Chris received the latest news and immediately asked the CIA to retrieve the hotel surveillance and confirm the situation of the hotel guests. He suspected that Arius went to the hotel to discuss the sale of biological and chemical weapons with the buyer. While reporting these, he also started the car and went to the hotel entrance to wait. Unfortunately, whether it was Chris or the CIA, they had misunderstood Arius' purpose for coming to Cameroon from the beginning. Arius did not come here to see his biological weapons factory, nor to discuss the sale of biological weapons with buyers, so he was not afraid of the other party discovering his criminal evidence. He was familiar with the CIA style and did not take special measures just to play with the CIA as a little fun on his way to pick up his girlfriend. That's right, even if Arias is a businessman who sells death, he has 7 emotions and 6 desires, falls in love with others, and hopes to give the other person a lifetime of happiness. He deliberately asked the bodyguard to block the entrance to the underground parking lot to buy time for him to escape. Arias changed into a completely different style of clothes and hairstyle in just a few minutes, then put on a new car, picked up his beloved girl, and left the parking lot. Pierce, who was squatting at the entrance and exit of the underground parking lot, only focused on Arias' original car, and only took a cursory glance at the other cars that came out. Arias' girlfriend happened to block Pierce's view, causing Arias to successfully escape from his sight. This squat came to the afternoon. The CIA also sent 2 agents to take over, otherwise Chris and Pierce would easily arouse suspicion if they stayed in the same place for too long. The 2 people gathered in the same car and closed the curtains of the left and right windows. Chris, the co-pilot, turned on the computer. The CIA was very efficient and the results of the hotel investigation had been sent to the mailbox. Of course, the CIA did not directly send people to the hotel to obtain surveillance. Instead, it used hackers to obtain guest information and surveillance videos. Fortunately, this hotel is not low-level and is considered a high-end hotel. Otherwise, it would not be equipped with modern monitoring equipment and electronic registration systems. Pierce also took out a computer to watch the surveillance video. The 2 sides divide the labor and cooperate, and he is mainly responsible for the video part. Chris is responsible for checking the status of each guest staying in the hotel. After the CIA obtained the information, they read it themselves and found a target. Let Chris and the others watch it again just to be on the safe side and ensure that there is nothing hidden in the cooperation between the 2 parties. Chris first looked at the target targeted by the CIA, which was a tribal warlord named Cress in Benin. Recently, this warlord has won consecutive battles and successfully annexed 13 tribes, so he came to this tourist resort to relax and reward his capable generals. As soon as Chris saw the introduction, he understood why the CIA thought this person would be Arias buyer. This Cress is in a country that has been at war for a long time, and the strength of all the forces has been in a relatively balanced state over the years. So when he suddenly conquered 13 tribes, he might have used some undisclosed means, such as biological and chemical weapons. Chris then thought about it and took out his cell phone to call Luo Guang. The other party once said that those warlords who dared to buy biological and chemical weapons were killed by him, and the remaining warlords naturally did not dare to touch biological and chemical weapons. It's not that he thinks that living warlords won't take risks, otherwise they wouldn't become warlords. It's just that there are always channels for purchasing biological and chemical weapons on the African black market. If this warlord really wanted to buy biological and chemical weapons, he wouldn't have just bought them today. He would have bought them and used them long ago, and then been killed by Luo Guang. As soon as the call was connected, Chris asked directly, "Luo Guang, do you know a Benin warlord named Cress?" Luo Guang was enjoying Ashley's massage and said, "Let me check. Is that person suspected of selling biological and chemical weapons?" Being suspicious, Arias went to the hotel where the guy was staying. Luo Guang flipped through the phone book on his phone and said, "I found that guy's phone number. Let me ask it for you." "Wait a minute, what did you say?" asked the other party this question directly. Chris looked confused. Is this something he could ask directly? Luo Guang said, "Hey, my work in Africa these days is not in vain. I went to all the warlords' bedrooms to talk to them and told them not to touch biological and chemical weapons. He directly killed those who had already touched the warlords. But they have come, so he will personally visit the local warlords who have not encountered the biological crisis." Upon hearing this, Chris understood what the other party had done, and couldn't help but sympathize with the warlords who were approached. Luo Guang knew what the other party was worried about and said, "Don't worry, I won't leak information about your mission." Chris chose to believe the other person and said, "Okay, I'll wait for your news." Luo Guang hung up the phone and called the Cress warlord. "Do you remember my voice? Who are you? Who cares whether your voice sounds good or not?" The background music was very loud, and the drunken warlord pressed the phone tightly to his ears. Luo Guang reminded the other party directly to prevent the other party from hanging up the phone and said, "When you and your third wife were sleeping in the same bed, didn't I come to you? Didn't you remember it so soon?" As soon as Cress heard this, he immediately woke up and took his bodyguard to the toilet with good sound insulation. After he kicked out the people inside, he asked the bodyguards to guard the door to prevent others from entering. "Hello, Minister." Cress didn't know how to call Luo Guang Hao, so he finally squeezed out this sentence. Luo Guang asked directly, "I am looking for you this time to ask if you have recently purchased biological and chemical weapons." Judging from the background sounds the other party made just now, he was probably enjoying himself in the nightclub, and it didn't look like he was in the middle of a transaction. No, Cress almost peed in shock. He didn't want to have his wife standing quietly beside his bed again while he was doing the things he loved. At that time, he softened instantly. The most terrifying thing is that all the bodyguards in the house don't know how the other party came in, and the surveillance equipment can't see any trace of the other party. Then what's going on with your recent winning streak? If you hadn't touched any biological or chemical weapons, you wouldn't mind our BSA investigating you, right? If Luo Guang starts asking from this aspect, he won't expose Chris's affairs. Cress quickly explained, "There is no winning streak, it's just that we win more and lose less. We didn't rely on biological and chemical weapons to gain those territories." Seeing that Luo Guang did not interrupt, he knew that the other party was waiting for his explanation. He thought that the BSA would not compete with their warlords for territory, so he was not worried about revealing the secret of his winning streak. He said, "We got a copy of Sun Tzu's Art of War. After finding someone to translate it, we studied it day and night and applied it to the battle. Won a lot of battles. That book is amazing." The other party's last flattery was very deliberate, but Luo Guang didn't care about this and said, "That's what I said, but how do I know whether it is true or false? As I said, I will send someone to your side to investigate. Do you have no problem?" Cress really had never done any of this, so he was not afraid of being investigated and immediately replied, "No problem. There are people who witnessed our battle in the territory I conquered. You can ask them." After hearing this, Luo Guang basically believed what the other party said, because if the other party really used biological and chemical weapons, all the survivors would definitely be eliminated in order to prevent him from knowing. However, he still said safely, "In this case, I will send someone to investigate, and you can give me a good reception." "Yes, definitely," Cress nodded and replied. When Luo Guang hung up the phone, he breathed a sigh of relief and walked out of the toilet. Master, the man who helped him translate the Art of War, came in and said, "What happened?" Cress hid his cowardice and spoke out. "We are not afraid of investigation for things we have not done." The man pondered for a while and said, "But the other party has many things to do, so the sudden call is probably because he received a report." "Commander, are you saying that someone is jealous of the territory we have recently acquired, so they want to slander us for using biological and chemical weapons?" Cress was shocked. He had never thought of this just now. The military advisor expressed his prediction, "The enemy is likely to blame us next." Cress immediately asked, "That's terrible. What should we do now?" The military strategist came up with a way: "We can only give up our vacation. We will go back immediately to reorganize the territory we just established and ensure that no biological and chemical weapons are smuggled in. Yes, this is the only way, but in this case, this party specially organized for you will be wasted. In fact, The strategist had noticed Kress entering the toilet a long time ago and asked the bodyguard to drive him out. It's just that he was fighting Jan Mazy on the sofa at that time, and in the final sprint, he couldn't leave for a while. After entering the sage state, he felt quite pressured by the other beauties who were eyeing him covetously. He thought that he might as well take this opportunity to leave so as not to expose his fatigue. So the military advisor said firmly, "Master, your career is the most important. As long as you are here, Master, am I afraid that I won't have a chance in the future?" Good brother, Kress was very moved by this and held the hand of his own military advisor tightly with both hands. "Meow, I might take a day off on the 13th to worship my ancestors." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 551. Luo Guang on the other side finished calling the warlord and turned around to tell Chris about their chat. "This is the situation. I personally feel that the other party did not seek death. After the investigation results are available, I will contact you again." "Okay, thank you." Chris looked at the computer screen intently, hung up the phone, and muttered, "Why does this person look so similar to Rebecca?" Pierce just paused the video and paid attention to the call between Chris and Luo Guang. After hearing this, he looked at the beautiful woman on the other party's computer screen and asked, "Captain, do you know this person?" "I know this person with this appearance. Her name is Rebecca Chambers." Chris corrected the other person and introduced, "Rebecca is my former teammate of the STARS team." That STARS team in Raccoon City, Pierce knew about this team. They could be said to be the ones who fired the first shot against the Resident Evil. Chris nodded and said, "She is still a virus consultant for our North American branch, responsible for assisting us in analyzing virus samples. If I remember correctly, she should be studying biological viruses at the University of Chicago in Illinois." According to the check-in information, the name of this girl who looks very similar to Rebecca is Sarah. Chris thought that he couldn't guess the reason, so he called Rebecca directly to confirm. After hearing what the other party said, Rebecca was also very surprised and said that she was still at the research center of the University of Chicago. Due to confidentiality reasons, Chris didn't say much. He just said he would go back and treat her to dinner and hung up the phone. He only paid attention to this person because he saw someone similar to Rebecca. Now that he was sure that the other person was just someone with a similar appearance, he stopped paying attention and moved on to the next person. Time passed by minute. After reading the tenant information, Chris found no other suspicious characters, and then joined the work of watching surveillance videos. "Strange," Pierce said after looking at all the surveillance cameras at the entrance. "We didn't see Arias' movements and whereabouts inside the hotel in the surveillance cameras." Chris, who was responsible for checking the key locations, also found something suspicious. Arias was not photographed in the elevator room of the underground garage. The two of them looked at each other and felt that there was something very interesting in it. Chris immediately contacted the local CIA director. After hearing this, the other party said that their people also discovered the problem, but based on the hotel's surveillance layout and structural diagram, they found that Arias had at least 2 or 3 routes to bypass the surveillance. For example, if you take the stairs from the underground garage to the first floor, then turn around and walk toward the toilet, the stairs to other floors will not be captured by surveillance cameras. Chris wanted to discuss a few more things, and he felt there was still a problem here. The CIA also knew that the other party was a little anxious and said, "We have no law enforcement power here, so we can't rush into the hotel to arrest someone. Not to mention that we don't have any evidence to prove that the other party is suspected of breaking the law. Even if we catch him, we can't extradite him. So now they can only control from the outside." However, the CIA is not a good boy. The person in charge said, "Don't worry. If the target is negotiating the sale and purchase in the hotel, they will definitely inspect the goods afterwards. And we have just successfully installed a tracker on the target car, which can be used to locate the target. The places we visit may give us surprises. Chris was about to answer the call and questioned how the CIA could install a locator on the other party's car, even though they were covered by bodyguards. As a result, the other party suddenly shouted, "Wait! There's something going on. Arias and his bodyguards' cars have moved." Copy that. Chris immediately asked Pierce to start the car. The person in charge of the CIA said, "I will send you the positioning program." The men and horses on both sides immediately started to move, using the trackers to hang far behind the target, without following the opponent closely. But Arias was very cautious and separated from the bodyguard's car at a fork in the road. The CIA was worried about Arias hiding in the bodyguard car. Anyway, they had enough manpower, so they immediately divided their forces into two groups. Chris and the others moved together with the CIA car, followed Arias' car from a distance, and left the city. Eventually they came to a plantation, where Arias' car stopped. It was already dark, so Chris and the others did not rush in rashly and stopped more than a kilometer away. What's the next plan? He watched the CIA agent get out of the car and arrange the equipment, so he got out of the car and went directly to ask the other party's plan. The captain of the CIA agent replied, "We have contacted the above. We, the BSAT, will not participate in the next infiltration mission." Pierce got out of the car and asked, "Why is this? We can also help." Chris was equally puzzled. The other party called the two of them over to help, but in the end they were asked to just watch. Isn't this a contradiction? The CIA did want to use the identity of the BSAT-2 people to track Arias at the beginning, and his side was only responsible for assisting. However, before Chris and the others got off the plane, their target position was lost. Now when Chris and the others come back from Luoguang, they can't leave Arias alone, so in the end the CIA can only continue to participate in this tracking operation. We are not citizens of the lighthouse country, so even if something happens, we will not bring trouble to our motherland, but you are different, especially Chris, you are also a well-known person. If you don't think about yourself, you have to think about the problem of your BSAT identity being exposed. The CIA made this decision to minimize the losses when the mission failed. Risks and benefits coexist. They lost Arias before, and it was already embarrassing that Chris and his team got new clues to find the target. So this time they took on this infiltration mission, and they also wanted to save some face. Of course, all this was a decision made by the CIA analysis department after analyzing the situation. They believed that the task of infiltration and evidence collection could be completed by relying on the on-site agents alone, and they did not let their men die for the sake of face. The CIA agent said generously, "It's not too late for you to join us after we find biological weapons. If you encounter an accident that is not a biological crisis, don't take action. Leave here immediately and tell the people above us about our situation." This mission is still led by the CIA since the other party said so. Chris and Pierce did not insist after confirming with the other party's superiors. They just prepared for the battle, put their weapons at their feet, and waited in the car. Half an hour later, the 4 CIA agents in this operation finally reached the vicinity of the plantation. The main road leading to the house in the middle of the plantation must not be taken. There is no cover there, and it is easy to be discovered by the enemy and become a live target. Fortunately, they found that the cornfield here can perfectly block the view of the house, so they chose to go through the cornfield without saying a word. The plantation was very quiet, with only the rustling sound of the wind blowing through the corn stalks. The CIA agent held his weapon in his hand and did not relax his vigilance. Suddenly, the agent who pushed away the corn leaves in front of him saw a person with his back to him. He was wearing farm clothes and holding a sickle. He looked like a farmer who was working overtime. The CIA agents didn't need to communicate. One of them quickly stepped forward and knocked him unconscious with a knife to his neck. The others immediately followed, past the fallen man, and continued to move forward. However, just after these CIA agents left, the knocked out man stood up again. He didn't pick up the sickle that fell on the ground, but walked directly in the direction the agents left. Not only him, if the CIA agents used drones, they would find that there were many creatures in the huge cornfield, moving corn stalks and quietly surrounding them. Chris and Pierce sat in a dark car, without turning on the lights or using computers or other items that would emit light. The two could stand the loneliness, and they didn't start chatting because they were bored, but chose to take turns to rest. Suddenly, Chris's personal mobile phone vibrated. Without Pierce waking him up, he was just resting his eyes, took a look at the incoming call reminder and answered the call. "Luo Guang? Did you get the results?" Chris was surprised that it would take too long to get the results after going to Benin for an investigation. But other than that, he couldn't think of the reason why Luo Guang suddenly called him. "There is a biochemical crisis in Cameroon. But there are agents from our African branch in the local area, so you don't have to worry about this biochemical crisis." The incident did not happen in the city where Chris and his friends were. It happened in a shopping mall, and it didn't seem to target a specific person. Luo Guang paused, letting the other party digest the news, and added, "I'll let you know. If this biochemical crisis is related to Arius, I'll contact you again." He thought to himself that there would be more or less unexpected situations where the protagonists were. Fortunately, he had foresight and arranged for people to go there in advance. The other party replied with a received and didn't ask him, so Luo Guang hung up the phone. Chris had just hung up Luo Guang's phone and was about to tell Pierce the news when he heard gunshots and screams in his headphones. Pierce frowned, and he also wore a headset to communicate with the CIA. The two heard shouts from the headset at the same time. "Biochemical monster." Then there were several more gunshots and screams, and finally the only sound that reached the ears of the two was the smacking of zombies. "Let's go." Chris did not hesitate at all, and did not care whether it was an enemy trap or not, and immediately contacted the CIA, and Pierce immediately started the car and drove to the plantation. The CIA also knew that something had happened, and only said to Chris and the others, "We will help you cover the bottom and arrest Arius immediately." Judging from the screams, it is unlikely that there will be survivors, so they did not let Chris and the others rescue people. When the two arrived outside the plantation, Chris immediately picked up the ACM assault rifle at his feet. "Let's go in, be careful." "Yes," Pierce did not question it, and also took up his weapon and got out of the car. At this time, there was no gunfire in the park, and the agents who had sneaked in before never contacted them again, and there was only the sound of blood dripping in the headset. Chris and the others had confirmed the action plan when they came. According to the intelligence, the CIA agent was trapped in the cornfield. They would not repeat the same mistake, so they did not physically explore the grass. Chris and his team walked directly along the dirt road to the center of the plantation. According to the CIA's location, Arius' car was parked there. "Look to the left and right," Chris warned, as cornstalks obscured the view of the dirt road for trucks. Pierce nodded and flexed his gun fingers. Suddenly, the rustling sound was getting closer and closer to them over the sound of the wind, and Chris also vaguely heard the roar of the zombies. A zombie ran out of the cornfield on the right, targeting himself. But how could Chris be easily succeeded by the opponent? He reacted extremely quickly and knocked the zombie to the ground with one punch. Before he could finish the attack, more zombies rushed out of the cornfield and attacked the two of them. Chris and Pierce immediately fired back to back, each killing the leading enemy. However, due to terrain reasons, the enemy was very close to them when they left the cornfield, and close combat was inevitable. Without any hesitation, Chris simply let go and threw away the assault rifle, pulled out the dagger, and at the same time dodged the close attack. He thought that he must prepare a bayonet for his assault rifle next time, so that he would not have to throw the gun and pull out the dagger. A left hook hit one zombie and knocked down another zombie, staggering the enemy's attack sequence and time, giving him enough time to deal with the third zombie. Chris held the dagger behind his back, without any bells and whistles. He used his wingspan advantage and the distance advantage brought by the dagger to stab the enemy's eye socket with one blow before his arms touched his. Without giving him time to rest, Chris immediately drew his knife and attacked the other zombies. Pierce on the other side also threw down his assault rifle, but he chose to pull out his pistol to fight, so that he didn't have to worry about the bullet's excessive penetration. He is a sniper, and the weapons he usually uses are pistols in addition to sniper rifles. Pierce used the central axis locking shooting method, swinging his arms to throw away the zombie's grasping attack, combined with elbow suppression and counter-attack, and finally used the pistol to complete the fatal blow. This is the last one. Chris breathed out and picked up the assault rifle on the ground again. Pierce also dealt with the enemies he faced, put away his pistol, picked up the discarded assault rifle, and said, "I've also dealt with them here." He paused, glanced around at the zombies lying on the ground, and said, "Those agents have all turned into zombies." Chris handed 2 pistol magazines to Pierce, who only had the last spare magazine left in his pistol, and said, "Remember them?" "Yes." "Thank you, Captain." Pierce took the magazine and put it away. After the two reported the discovery of the zombies to the CIA and BSAT, they continued to set off and soon found Aria's car. "It's too quiet. There's no way the other party has no reaction." Chris did not rely on the car as a cover, but quickly came to the door with Pierce. Tonight, this matter became more and more likely to be a trap. He was worried that the enemy had tampered with the car. Pierce asked in a low voice, "Captain, what should we do next? Should we directly enter the search or wait for support?" Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Meow. Chapter 552. Chris thought for a moment and then made a decision, saying, "Let's go back and wait for support, otherwise if the enemy plants a remote-controlled bomb inside, we will all die." Searched can on Google. There are only 2 of them, and they can cooperate and cover each other when they act together. If they act separately, they can easily be defeated individually, so they will not choose to search in 2 directions. However, just as he had worried before, Chris was not sure whether this trap only contained biological monsters. If Arias went crazy and planted a bomb inside, waiting for him and others to go in and detonate it, he had no confidence that he would survive. It is true that biochemical viruses are highly concealed, highly lethal and can be left alone after use, which is why the biochemical crisis created by the Beekeeper organization is so difficult to prevent. Moreover, the current mainstream terrorist attacks in the world are indeed based on biological and chemical weapons or viruses, but this does not mean that there are no such things as bomb attacks. Bombs are easier to obtain than biological and chemical viruses, and many third and fourth-rate terrorist organizations will still choose this method. In fact, if Pierce hadn't been here, even if Chris was worried about this, he would have gone in to investigate. It's not that he knew that there were tigers in the mountains and preferred to go to the Tiger Mountains, but that even if he came with support, he still had to send people in to investigate in the end in order to investigate the clues inside. At that time, some people will take risks, but Chris can't bear to see his teammates die, so he would rather take the risk himself than letting others take risks. Even though Chris in the biochemical game seems to be very capable of defeating his teammates, in fact his team's death rate is actually not high. This is because his team is specifically responsible for difficult tasks. Pierce quickly thought of this and said, "Captain, if we don't go in now, someone else will go in, and sooner or later someone will have to take the risk." Chris understood what the other party meant as soon as he heard it. "You want to?" Pierce could tell he was worried from the other person's face. After all, Chris didn't hide the fact that he was training himself as his successor. He was very grateful for this, and naturally he didn't want to live up to the other party's expectations. He smiled and said, "Someone always has to take risks, why can't it be me? Didn't my father also take risks to rescue his children from the zombies? Didn't he also take risks to join the death squad to deal with mutant monsters?" Chris was silent. What the other party said did make sense, but it was rare to meet a successor who was so in line with his own wishes, which made him cautious. Pierce added to the fire and said, "It is not the eagle's careful care that makes the young eagle fly high. Captain, you should know this. Real warriors cannot be raised in a greenhouse." Chris looked at each other, his eyes no longer entangled. Yes, a warrior does not grow into a great warrior under protection. The burden of the BSA ministerial position should not be held by soldiers who grew up in greenhouses. How can such a person have the courage to move forward when facing difficulties? You're right. If that's the case, I won't be polite in the future. I wish I could, Pierce replied with a smile. The two men were armed and ready to enter. Opening the door slightly, Chris first checked if there were any traps behind the door, and then pushed the door open after confirming it was safe. However, there was no explosion trap in the farmhouse, and no useful evidence was left behind. They only found a family of 4 and their dog that had turned into zombies. The 4 zombies were quickly eliminated, and the only threat came from the bull terrier that mutated into a zombie dog. Afterwards, the two went to the plantation warehouse, but found nothing. Judging from the results, they had been overly concerned and Arias did not plant the bomb. In fact, if Arias really wanted to do this, he wouldn't have to wait for the 2 people to enter the house, he could just get close enough to detonate it. Because as long as you install explosives with a large enough yield, you can directly blow up everything inside and outside the house. Chris returned to the open space outside the farmhouse, contacted the head of the CIA, and reported, "Arias is not here, and he did not leave any clues." There was no good news from the CIA either, saying, the team on the other side was also wiped out. The enemy planted a bomb in the warehouse, and our people detonated it directly after entering, without having time to escape. During this mission, it can be said that Cameroon CIA agents were severely damaged. This country is not big, and there were not many agents in Cameroon, but now they have been almost wiped out. Chris and Pierce looked at each other, and what they had worried about before turned out to be true, except that the bomb was not installed on their side. Chris asked directly, "What about the target's bodyguards? Where are they going?" The other party just mentioned that all the CIA agents who went to the warehouse were wiped out, but did not mention where the bodyguards went. The head of the CIA replied, "This is what I am going to say next. There were only drivers in the 2 cars, and it was these 2 people who led my agents into the trap." However, the agent's live voice mentioned the word zombie. The information here made Chris think about it. Does this zombie mean that there are zombies in the warehouse, or is it that the 2 drivers are actually zombies? If it's the latter, could the person driving Arias' car also be a zombie? He had encountered zombies that could shoot and drive during the company chaos, so he did not simply think that all zombies were dumb zombies like the T-virus. Moreover, when he and Pierce entered the plantation, they did not make any noise or use flashlights. However, the zombies were able to surround themselves accurately and seemed to be controlled by others. "We also encountered zombies here," Pierce said. Suddenly, he saw the captain giving himself a signal to follow him to the place where he had previously dealt with the zombies. The person in charge of the CIA said, "Okay. I am also investigating more information here. We have already found the owners of those cars." Chris came to the place where the zombies were lying on the ground, turned on the flashlight, and suddenly asked, "What style of clothes is Arias wearing today?" The head of the CIA was slow to react to the sudden change of subject, but Pierce responded immediately, "Blue suit and plaid tie." Chris shined the flashlight on a zombie on the ground and said, "Is it this outfit?" Pierce looked over. He really didn't pay attention to this during the previous battle. After all, the enemy was very close to them after rushing out of the cornfield, and there was no time for them to take a closer look at each zombie's appearance and clothes. He was surprised. Huh? The clothes are exactly the same, and the face is also similar. Pierce did not think that Arias, who had tricked him and others, turned into a zombie, and his imagination was crazy. After the CIA confirmed that Arias' car had moved, it also visually confirmed whether the people in the car were targets. However, the surveillance agents were separated by a distance, and 2 more bodyguard cars followed, so the people under surveillance were all confused by this 8-point image. People were deceived. If they could find out that this was a fake target, they probably wouldn't have fallen into the trap. After Chris told the CIA about his confirmed situation, he said, "The methods of both sides are exactly the same." The zombies the CIA people were talking about at that time were probably referring to the 2 drivers. I think the other party has actually always known that we were following him, and also knew that we had no evidence, so he wanted to use this to catch all the people we were following. The head of the CIA asked another question, "If the driver is a zombie, are these zombies stuck zombie?" Officials did not use the name Makanai, but instead called the zombies by the name of parasites. Chris replied, "We attacked the head directly, but none of the enemies entered the baneling state. I personally don't think it is a Plaka parasite. I have contacted the BSA to clean up the scene, and they will also confirm the zombies' next type. The warehouse was completely destroyed by the bombing, so there was no need to invite the BSA. This matter cannot be rushed. The most important thing now is Arias's matter," so Chris returned to the topic and said, "Now it seems that the plantation and the warehouse are Arias' traps." Pierce hoped to make up for it and said, "The other party escaped our sight when he was in the hotel, and the bodyguard should not only have 2 drivers. Maybe we can start from this aspect to find the other party's traces again." Rightward arrow. The other party's tone was full of bitterness. "It's unnecessary, because he left Cameroon by plane as early as this afternoon. And the other party told us this news anonymously. We were all fooled. Arias thinks he is extremely smart, and he has successfully tricked the opponent once, so naturally he has to show off, otherwise what is the point of doing such a thing?" The other side added very reluctantly, "So everything we have done these days has been in vain." Damn it, Pierce was very upset and punched the glass of Arias' car. In the beginning, he was responsible for monitoring the underground parking lot. If he had not leaked something, those CIA agents might not have died. Chris did not blame Pierce, nor was he discouraged. He just confirmed again, although the other party said that he left, the truth or falsehood is unknown. Maybe the other party is trying to lure the tiger away from the mountain. The person in charge of the CIA replied, "I have sent someone to verify it. In addition, we also investigated the plantation and warehouse. The owner of that place is called Talai, an ordinary local plantation owner. Arias, the car he drove before, was his. The 2 cars of the bodyguard were also in similar condition, and they were owned by the company that owned the warehouse. That is to say, the clue has been broken again. Arias' trace has also been lost." Pierce was also unwilling to accept it. The CIA leader of the Cameroon operation sighed and said, "In short, our mission failed this time. Let us handle the next thing. Our mission is over. There is another place in Cameroon where a biological crisis is still being dealt with. The city where the incident occurred is called Yaoundé. The local police had blocked the commercial center before Shiva and the others arrived, evacuated and isolated the civilians who ran out of it. Because the local Z government opened a green channel, Shiva and her men quickly arrived at the scene by helicopter. The police chief directly greeted Shiva and others who came over, and immediately told them the known information. The shopping mall was holding an event at the time. According to the survivors' confessions, the center of the outbreak was near the event stage, so the enemy probably took advantage of the mixed activities to sneak into the performance team. Where are the zombie types? This was different from the situation where Chris and the others suddenly encountered zombies. In addition, the situation was already under control, so Shiva, who had been specially trained by Luo Guang, did not rush in to kill. We eliminated a lone zombie and used a scanner to detect the blood and found that it was a T-virus zombie. Fortunately, this zombie did not move very fast, so except for the people at the center of the outbreak, most of the survivors survived. The police chief wiped the sweat from his brow as if he had been the one doing the job. People in this world have experienced so many biohazard incidents. Although they are still afraid of zombies, they will deal with them according to the anti-biohazard propaganda, so there will not be a situation where a zombie chases the entire shopping mall. Shiva nodded. T-virus zombies are now targets for actual combat training for anti-biochemical soldiers like them. She said, "Where are the maps and weapons of the mall that I asked for before?" She has already contacted them in advance and asked them to prepare weapons and equipment. Over here the police chief led them to a police car. 2 M16 assault rifles, a large dogleg knife and a Uzi submachine gun, as well as matching magazines, tactical belts, etc. were all neatly placed trunk. Although these firearms and weapons have reached a certain age and were eliminated when the army that originally used Wangguo brand weapons unified the caliber of weapons, they are still considered the most powerful weapons in their police station, so they are well maintained. Shiva took the dogleg knife and submachine gun, while the others took assault rifles and checked the weapons without saying anything. After inspection, the weapon is ready for use. The police chief responsible for preparing the weapons couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when the 2 men holding the assault rifles said that there was no problem with the weapons. Shiva said while checking the mall map, "My weapons are fine. I have a plan." The 2 people gathered around and looked at the map. Shiva explained, "You move covertly and go to the second floor over the event stage to wait, and then I will go directly to the outbreak site to attract attention." In order to allow more people to see the performance, the event stage was set up in the center of the hollow shopping mall. The police chief on the side was frightened when he heard this. He didn't expect this young girl to behave in such a tough manner. Josh Stone, the captain of the Delta team, who recovered from the cannibalism attack by his teammates, said, "Does that mean our mission is to cover you?" Shiva nodded, indicating that he was right, and smiled, "Are you confident in yourself?" Dandakanti, the captain of the Alpha team of the African branch, looked at the opponent who was almost a year younger than him, and laughed and scolded, "You guy, don't forget that we taught you this kung fu." Shiva replied, "Now I'll show you something new I learned from the minister." Josh told Shiva, "Be careful yourself. Although the enemy is just a T-virus zombie, I don't know if it will mutate into a licker." Although Shiva was confident, she was not arrogant and said, "Don't worry, I won't be careless." The police chief on the side waited for them to finish chatting before interjecting, "Is there anything else you need our help with?" Shiva replied, "Continue to blockade this place, check whether the survivors have been bitten by zombies, and prevent the spread of biohazard. In case our mission fails or the bullets are empty and we need to temporarily evacuate, you should be careful before we enter the blockade." Shot. She didn't know how good these policemen were with their marksmanship, but unless it was an emergency, she wouldn't put her hopes on these people. It's not that Shiva is discriminating against the police, it's just that compared to the marksmanship they use to produce tens of thousands of bullets, the marksmanship these police use to produce less than 100 bullets a year is too immature. After the 3 people discussed it, the plan started immediately. 2 men with assault rifles set off first, with Shiva following closely behind. She did not pull out the knife, but switched the Uzi submachine gun to semi-automatic mode and held it with both hands. Because this submachine gun fires too fast and it is difficult to control the recoil with one hand, otherwise she would definitely perform a gorgeous waltz like Luo Guang with a knife in one hand and a submachine gun in the other. After the two people on the second floor were in place, Shiva, who was hiding, took a deep breath and rushed out of the bunker. Ta, da, da. The Uzi submachine gun spit out tongues of fire rhythmically. Shiva kept a calm face and killed the approaching zombies one by one without missing a beat. Dan and Josh, who were on the second floor, didn't fire immediately. It wasn't time for them to do so yet. After the 30-second bullet was fired, Shiva shouted, "Reload." This was the signal, and the two people on the second floor immediately opened fire, condescendingly clearing away the zombies approaching Shiva. Shiva completely trusted the two of them, so she stood in the center of the event stage, replacing the new magazine with standard movements, silently counting the shots of the M16 assault rifle. As soon as the gunfire stopped, it was her turn, ready to continue the previous steps. However, perhaps by coincidence, a licker took this opportunity to appear from behind Shiva and rushed towards Shiva, who was the focus of the stage. "Behind," Josh reminded loudly. Shiva also heard the movement behind her, and while turning around quickly, the submachine gun in her hand had switched to fully automatic mode. In less than 2 seconds, the bullets were emptied again, all hitting the licker's exposed and distended brain. The licker took off smoothly, but already lost his life. He could only rely on inertia to hit him, but Shiva easily dodged it. The two people above couldn't help but sweat for Shiva, but because of such an accident, they were a step slower in reloading. But it wasn't a big problem for Shiva. She easily dodged the zombie attack and drew out the dogleg knife. In less than 5 minutes, they had completely wiped out the zombies at the center of the mall outbreak. Meow, thanks for subscribing and voting me out.